Okay, thank you, everyone. Welcome. This is the Washington State Building Code Council full council meeting for February 21st, 2025. I don't see Dustin, but are we in position to try and take roll? Maybe
Yeah,
Crystal?
I'm here. I'm just finalizing my login.
Oh, I see. You're okay. You're all there in the room together. Gotcha.
Want me to do the roll?
Yes.
Todd Beverden,
Here.
Jay Arnold,
Here.
Shell Anderson,
Present.
Justin Bourgo,
Here.
Damon Doyle,
Here.
Tom Handy,
Here.
Angela Hutt,
Here.
Roger Haringa, Matthew Hetner, Ty Mincer,
Here.
Ben Omara,
Here.
Pete Reekey, Katie Sheehan,
Here.
and Dan Young.
Here.
We do have a quorum. Now let's go to our ex officios. Lauren Lathrop, Senator John Lovick, Representative Alex Rummel, Representative Suzanne Schmidt,
Here.
Senator Shelley Short, Assistant Attorney Derek Meyer-Bachdahl.
I'm here. Hello, all.
We do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you and welcome, Representative Schmidt. Thanks for joining us during session. We're going to go to introductions from the public. I will talk and set up in agenda item 2, the energy code tag request. But for now, if you'd like to be recognized, please raise your hand and I'll call on you. Tim, please.
And have permission to speak.
Tim Atterbury, Associated General Contractors of Washington.
Thank you, Tim, and welcome. Greg,
Yeah, Greg Johnson with the Vista.
welcome. Patrick,
Yes, thank you. This is Patrick Hanks with the Building Industry Association of Washington.
thank you. Elizabeth,
Elizabeth Torsky with Cascade Natural Gas. Thank you.
thank you. Deepa,
Deepa Sivarajan with Climate Solutions. Thank you.
welcome. Is it Don?
Yes, Don Stanky from Climate Action of Southwest Washington. I would like to speak during number 4.
Yep, I'll get to 4. Okay, thank you, Don. Donna, next.
Donna Albert, I'm a retired engineer.
Is it Arvia?
Yes. Hello, my name's Arvia Morris. I'm from the Climate Rail Alliance.
Welcome. I see Jed.
Good morning, Jed Sherman with the IATMO Group.
Welcome. Poppy.
Poppy Storm with 2050 Institute.
Thank you. Dave Cocut.
Dave Cocat, Washington State Association of Fire Marshals.
Welcome. And then Johnny.
Johnny Kutcher here with RMI.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a person here in the room who would like to be recognized as well.
Of course. Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Tony Usabelli. I'm here just as a public citizen to testify during the public comment period.
Okay. Thank you, Tony. Okay. Those are the hands. Welcome, everyone. With that, we'll move on to agenda item 2. We're going to review and approve the agenda. I'm going to make a quick statement here. So on agenda item 5 on the energy code, Jim, did I miss you on the previous item on the introductions? Okay. So today we'll get into depth on the energy code tag request. We are not taking action today, and we are not taking public comment on the merits of the proposal, but we will let the proponent introduce the item And then we will have times for the council to ask questions, and then we'll propose our 4-week window for public testimony. So I just want to kind of lay out there, we will allow public comment on that process. That's our intent today, but I just want to set that up as we discuss the agenda here today. So with that, can we have a council member make a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Chell. Second by Tom, I believe. Are there any proposed edits or discussion on the agenda?
I have a question, which is I believe that number 8 is time critical, and I want to make sure we get to it today. I think, so I wanted to ask Todd and others if they think we'll be able to get to 8 today.
Well, my opinion is yes. I anticipate we will move very efficiently through our agenda day. So
Okay.
hold me to that, and then tell me I'm wrong when we get to 2 o'clock. But I think we'll be fine today. Okay, thank you, Chell. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved, as approved as shown on the screen. Agenda item 3 is review and approve the minutes from January 21st and February 6th.
So, Mr. Chair, those minutes are not ready for
Thank
review.
you. I see that now as soon as I said it. So so we will table those till next meeting. On agenda item 4 is public comment on items not on the agenda. I know we have a couple guests that would like to speak on to us. I'm going to call first in the room. Was it Tony, I believe?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If you want, you can be heard anywhere in the room.
Well, I'll come up to the table and get a little more formal. Welcome.
Tony, before you start, I see a couple of council member hands here. Tom, did you have a question?
Yeah, back to the item before. I think we also had another set of minutes that needed to be approved that went back for corrections from either November or early December.
I recall that as well.
So
There was-
with the minutes, we've had some illness within the staff, and we just are running a little bit behind on all that, so we're not quite ready with all those.
No, that's good. I just wanted it noted that we've got more than 2 that are not ready.
Okay, thank you. Your memory is better than mine. So was it just, you think it was November? Sounds like, Dustin, you're aware of them, and we'll get them up there for next time, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, back to public comment. We're going to go in the room first, and I see about 6 hands online. So Tony, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, members of the council. My name is Tony Usabella. I'm speaking here this morning as
Point of order, I'm getting some echo. I can't hear you, Tony.
I think they're tracking. Thank you, Joe.
I'm muted here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, now we're good. Should we try it again?
Sorry about that.
I don't know that I've spoken where I get double credit for my speaking. Echo in the background. Again, my name is Tony Usabelli. I am retired from the energy business. I was the director of the Washington State Energy Office for a number of years, among a number of other things, and I continue as a volunteer with a number of organizations. I'm here today really to do 2 things. One is to thank the council for their work related to responses to the Initiative 2066. I'm glad that the council did carefully examine the implications of that initiative as it relates to particularly the existing code, did not declare an emergency, and is moving forward in a very deliberative manner to continue to ensure that we have what I would argue is the best energy code in the state of Washington, and that the council continue to move that momentum forward, focusing particularly on the requirements set forth in the law for 2031, and that the council continue in that vein as well to focus on the energy efficiency requirements related to buildings. I've had the opportunity over the course of my career and volunteer to work on the state energy code for now almost 35 years. And I've seen the incredible improvements that have come from having a strong code, both for residences and for businesses across the state. The much more efficient structures that we have in this state, the massive cost savings that have resulted, and in turn, the reductions in prices because we have been able to meet our energy needs through efficiency, not in any small part due to the existence and the continued improvement of the state code. So with that, I again want to thank you for the work you're doing and look forward to your continued progress on the energy code. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate joining today. Okay, we have about 7 hands now online. No one else in the room, correct?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. We'll go on Jim Lazar, please, first.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a moment to thank the council and your attorneys general for their work obtaining dismissal of the lawsuit that sought to force you into rulemaking. The initiative clearly affects what you do going forward. It did not provide any repeal of existing codes within it. I think you took the right action in not declaring an emergency, and I'm very glad to see dismissal of that case, allowing you to get to work on really making the 2024 code follow in the footsteps of the 2021 code, keeping Washington State at the forefront of codes that provide for comfortable homes, a reliable power supply that doesn't have to grow very fast, and low customer energy bills. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you, Jim, for that. Arvia Morris, please.
Hello, this is Arvia Morris again. I'm a longtime climate advocate with various organizations, and I just want to say that we've all seen with climate change that summers are hotter, drier, much smokier. And I really appreciate that I have a heat pump in my house, so I've been able to breathe clean air and have a cool and have a comfortable home. And as an aging person, it's very important, not to be physiologically stressed. And there's a lot of people who have serious health problems, and being in a building that has clean air and a non-stressful temperature, which you can achieve very energy efficiently with heat pumps, is really important. And I really appreciate our building codes for having them, and I hope that they can be more widely used in the future. And so I support having them deployed to the maximum degree possible. And I think that pretty much covers my testimony. This resilience that we need for climate change is so important. So I thank the building codes. I'm done.
Okay, thank you for that, Arvia. We're going to move on to Don.
Oh, this is hello. This is Don Stanky. I live in Clark County. My team and I have appeared several times before you in support of strong energy codes. I urge you not to make changes to the building codes until our courts have ruled on the constitutionality of Initiative 2066. For 50 years, I've witnessed the myriad problems associated with weak energy codes, beginning with the energy crisis of the 70s. We've gone from begging Congress for funds to retrofit poorly insulated buildings to one of the largest municipal defaults in history, which would have been averted with stronger energy codes. I'm referring to the nuclear boondoggle sponsored by the Washington Public Power Supply System. More recently, our legislature amended the Growth Management Act to require the 11 fastest growing counties, such as mine, to reduce emissions and Earlier, our legislature declared that the state shall reduce emissions 45% below 1990 levels by 2030. I'm on 2 climate advisory committees in Clark County, working on the climate chapter of the Growth Management Act. We've been working on our comp plans for 3 years. I've had a heat pump in my house, central heating, the only source of heat, since 1976. I just threw that in since Arvia mentioned heat pumps. But in conclusion, for you to make changes before the courts decide about Initiative 2066 would make our work harder in Clark County on these committees. I urge you to wait until the courts decide. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Don. We have about 5 names left. Johnny Coker, please.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Johnny Kocher. I work at RMI, Climate Policy Nonprofit. I want to encourage the State Building Code Council to stay the course and work through the normal rulemaking that is already occurring this year to respond to all federal and state regulations. There's been robust conversation that's already been occurring at the Energy Code technical advisory groups with multiple proposals and working groups to discuss various options to present to the State Building Code Council to respond to whatever contingencies occur this year. While 2066 is decided in court, I think it's smart for the State Building Code Council to keep their options open and to not go through and try to change to have like 3 separate codes in the course of a 12-month period, which is what would be required if there was emergency rulemaking and the code were to change really quickly, which I think would both confuse designers as well as code officials. So yeah, keep staying the course and appreciate all the work that y'all do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Johnny. We'll go to Patrick Hanks, please.
Thank you. Once again, this is Patrick Hanks with BIW. I have a question. Since the meeting minutes aren't prepared, in reviewing the last special council meeting, I was trying to confirm the details of the submittal window that the council opened up. So I was wondering if staff could confirm that the submittal window was opened up from February 10th to April 7th, and if that is only for the 2021 Energy Code, or if it also includes the commercial code related to 2066 proposals. Thank you.
So yes, at the last council meeting, we did open the window, and we are working on making a website notice on that. We've been behind on getting the website updated. As far as the codes available to that one, I do believe that window is open for just the 2021.
For both commercial and residential, correct? Anyone confirm? So the special window, Patrick, you're referring to is for 2021. And to my memory, both the commercial and the residential for 2021. Is that correct, everyone? Go ahead, Angela.
I thought I remembered it was residential because I thought there had already been a notice for the commercial. I mean, I'm not adverse to it being both, but I thought I remembered Chell talking about there had been a note on the website earlier that we were still accepting the commercial ones, and then that window closed, but I could be wrong. I mean, because I think it would be a good idea, but yeah.
And just to make sure everyone is tracking what we're talking about here. So the discussion and action taken in the last meeting. So the 2024 commercial, the Washington State Energy Commercial Code, the window for petitions already opened and closed. The window for the residential 2024 is coming up. This is a special window that was the action taken was for the 2021 petitions specifically related to I-2066. And in that action, my memory was both commercial or residential, but I could be corrected if the notes or memories differ.
Mr. Chair, I'll get back at my note for that meeting. It's the 2021 Energy Code, both commercial and residential, for a period from February 10th to April 7th.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Patrick, does that help? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Okay, we'll move on to Deepa, please.
Thank you, Deepa Sivarajan with Climate Solutions. I'll keep it short since a lot of other folks have made some really great points that I agree with, but just want to thank the council for not declaring an emergency rulemaking in response to Initiative 2066 and for keeping a measured approach to complying with that law. And just want to reemphasize again that the current code does not penalize gas. It incentivizes efficiency, which is core to the way that our CWs are written around increasing efficiency in the code in the years leading up to 2031. So thank you again, and looking forward to seeing how things proceed.
Thank you, Deepa. Okay, two more. Ollie, please. Ollie Lee.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, great. Thank you. I want to thank you to the SBCC for always listening to community and what our comments are as well, and not declaring the emergency rulemaking of I-2066. I just wanted to tell you that I've heard a lot in the news about Asian restaurants and how they support gas. I'll tell you a story. We had 6 restaurants growing up, and my mother was severely burned by a gas accident from the stove happening. And so all the way through, and also our employees, as far as how the heat was affecting them, the Chinatown International District in particular, they have the #1 health assertive disparities in the area, as well as a heat dome area. So you figure a hot kitchen that has multiple people that's very small, along with then gas that's running, is very hot. So I'll tell you, a majority of people are looking at induction and looking at other ways to be efficient as far as for appliances. This code would then help with that, as far as them being able to then allow them to make the switch. So we appreciate and we thank you for your support on that. We also ask that if you could wait until after the ruling would be great, in 1 to 2 months. I know it's a wait, but we've been working on this for a long time. I've testified before. I appreciate you hearing my voice, and I thank you all for your help and your work.
Thank you for that perspective. And Donna Albert, please.
Donna, you'll need to update.
Can you
There
hear
we
me?
go. We
Okay.
can now.
Okay, good. My name's Donna Albert. I'm a retired professional civil engineer. Worked for the state for 27 years managing the design and construction of capital projects for agencies and colleges. I appreciate that the State Building Code Council has not declared an emergency rulemaking in response to I-2066. RCW 19-1702 says the Washington State Building Code Council exists to promote the health, safety, and welfare of the people of the state of Washington. Other state laws regarding greenhouse gas emissions, energy efficiency, and public health also exist for the health, safety, and welfare of Washingtonians and must be considered. I also have asthma. I have a heat pump, and I am so thankful that I have air conditioning and a good filter during wildfire smoke days. And I am concerned about people in apartments, especially who don't have a choice about their heating and ventilation systems. Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you for that, Donna. Okay, seeing no other hands, appreciate everyone for the input today. We'll move on to agenda item 5, my apologies, energy code tag request. So we had a special executive committee meeting on Tuesday. And in that, one of the items was to establish this agenda, but also specifically talk about an approach for this item. So where we landed on Tuesday was to propose today for the full council. We're going to have an introduction by Council Member Chell Anderson, who also is the Washington State Energy Code Commercial TAG Chair. So Chell will serve as the agency representative to introduce the petition and what the action taken by the TAG was. Then we're going to invite Gregory Johnson, who's the proponent of this particular petition, to give an introduction and a presentation on the context of the petition. And then we as a council will discuss our proposed schedule over the next 4 weeks, culminating in a hearing and public input, verbal input on March 21st at our regularly scheduled council meeting. But that 4 weeks, our proposal is to have that window open for written testimony. So with that, Chell, if you're available and willing to introduce the petition, and if Dustin, if we're able to pull that up, please.
Yes.
Yeah, and my understanding is I'm introducing the petition, but for the tag process, but then Greg Johnson, who's the proponent, will then introduce the petition in more detail. So I'm the tag chair, and the commercial energy code tag has been meeting. We've met a few times for many hours. We've gotten through a few proposals. And this is one where the tag felt that the council should make a decision on this because it's fundamental to how we do energy codes. So the question is site versus source. And I think at many council meetings, we've heard someone say site versus source. And a lot of you probably don't know exactly what it means. There's a lot of experts on the tag on that. And Greg Johnson introduced this to help clarify in the code how we approach it. The energy code in the past has been, or the energy code is site-based currently. And there's a bunch of reasons why it's site-based. In this proposal, you'll see the above option is for a source. You'll see the word source in the second line there is the critical word there. And then in the after the or, site is the critical word in the next proposal. So it's basically, should we use site or source energy? Site energy means we would evaluate energy efficiency based on energy that is used on site. So an appliance, for example, if it's a certain percentage of efficient, we would rate it based on that efficiency at the site level, within the home or building. The source basis would use other methods, which would include, like for gas, for example, burning it off-site in an electricity power plant, and then delivering that electricity to the site. So there's site versus source factors out there, and that would multiply the site energy use by a site to source factor. Basically, that's what it means. The main reasons why we have used site energy use in the past, number one for me is we spent a lot of time in EPCA, and I've read EPCA more than I ever dreamed that I would. And to me, it clearly says we need to use site energy. EPCA is a federal law that lays out a pathway for states to create custom energy codes with 7 criteria that all need to be met. And one of the criteria requires either energy use or energy cost to be used. And the statute references appliance efficiency, and appliances use energy on site. So to me, EPCA clearly says we need to use site energy. But I have said in many past council meetings that this is a debate that a lot of people want to have. And so we are attempting to schedule something so that we can have that debate, and as a council get behind one direction or another. So I'm not going to get into the merits of it. I'm going to hand it off to Greg to introduce the proposal and add his words of wisdom.
Greg, we promoted you to a panelist, so if you want to share your presentation on screen, you can do that, or we can drive it for you.
Okay, I'll share on the screen. Says I sent a request.
Share. 1 second, we got to click a button. There we go. You should be able to share now.
As you're pulling up, I want to welcome you, Greg. Thank you for your willingness to come present to the council today. Council members, after Greg is presenting, we'll have the opportunity to ask questions. Our intent today is not to deliberate on the merit of the proposal, but this is our opportunity to ask lots of questions to the proponent. So go ahead, Greg. Thank you.
Yeah, and just echoing what Todd said, I'm not going to be advocating for one choice or the other. And as you can see from the proposal, I wrote it to be very unbiased, so that way we'd have the debate occur later. So at the March 21st, I believe, is where the debate and written comment. So today is just framing the question. And so basically, before I get in, I'll just mention the photo as an aside. This is a picture of a biomass facility that we have, just highlighting that energy comes from a lot of sources. Biomass is considered renewable because we're reducing the methane in the environment. So just in case you were wondering what that is. So essentially, we're trying to find energy efficiency is important. We're trying to find how do we measure energy efficiency, because it's really not specified in any statute. And there's lots of debate on that. And so getting back to basics a little bit, everyone agrees energy efficiency is important, but you've got to ask why. And that's where the divergence is going to happen. There's some people who think energy efficiency is really important because their primary goal is to lower their energy bills. And other people's primary focus is to lower carbon emissions. Early on in our quest as a state to reduce a 70% reduction in our energy consumption for buildings, which is on the right, the graph from P&L that shows the tracking of where we're at. Early on, you're doing both. You're reducing energy bills and you're reducing carbon emissions. And so it's an easy, everyone kind of agrees and everyone's happy. We've reached, with our 2021 code, we've reached the tipping point where now energy cost of utility bills and lowering carbon emissions are in tension. So as you move, and we're starting to see that in tension, that we're not, you might actually driving one up or the other up. And so that is the question that I can't answer for you. Every person has to answer for themselves. What is the driving factor? Is it lowering the cost of the utility bill, or is it lowering carbon emissions? And that will inform how you measure energy efficiency. So that's the root of, and I'm going to encourage you guys to do your own research. And we're not going through all these slides. I have them if you have questions, but it's also to point you in the direction if you want to do more research, because there's a lot of stuff out there. So Roger asked a really good question earlier this week. And his question that he asked prompted another thought, separate question, is basically, what are other people using? And so this so I only proposed two options, but actually there's more options being used by other codes. And so it's important to go. So whether the council chooses to choose one of the two, site or source-based, or they could choose a different factor, but it's important to just look at what everyone else is using. So if your main driver is carbon emissions, it makes sense that you'd use carbon emissions as your proxy for energy efficiency. If your main driver is utility bill cost, it would make most sense to use energy cost as your main metric for driving energy efficiency. So Washington State Energy Code in 2018 and the 2021 code before we had the Ninth Circuit of Appeals opinion on EPCA was carbon emissions based. That was how it was all based. And we were forced to, with the Ninth Circuit of Appeals opinion, we were forced to rewrite it and change the basis. Energy cost, the model codes use it, but they do allow for other uses like site or source use. And just a little tip, when you're going through codes, it can be really hard to tell what the basis is in the code. So a little hint on, because I'm encouraging you guys to go look at other codes from other states. What you do is flip straight to the performance pathway, skip past the prescriptive. The performance pathway will usually explicitly state what the basis is. So you can find that language, it tells you what it is. And a lot of codes may not be consistent. So that's just to be aware of too. Or they might allow for alternatives. Source energy, that's what the EPA recommends. That saying you're gonna, so source energy is a wholer picture, kind of saying what the whole system is. As a caveat, source energy is a lot more complex to calculate. It's a lot more in depth. If you did energy cost, it's very simple. Site energy, also very simple, but then site energy actually has a bifurcation. Like, how do you deal with two different sources that are unlike, natural gas versus electricity. They're measured in different units. So how do you deal with that? And there's two sub approaches, which the council, if they choose site energy, they're going to have to deal with how to compare with dissimilar energy sources. So our 2006 Washington State Energy Code, which is what our baseline is, that was an apples to apples comparison only. We're only going to compare gas versus gas, electric versus electric. Oregon does the same thing. Our current Washington State Energy Code 2021 is on trying to compare dissimilar sources, gas to electric. And so that is, and how that came about was basically when we created the fossil fuel pathway, we had to recalculate the credits, and PNL had stated on the record they didn't have the available time or funding to do that recalculation. So the proponent of that very kindly offered up their services for free to recalculate the credits for the fossil fuel pathway. And they consulted with PNL, and they had chosen what they thought was best. I should do as a caveat is our code is inconsistent, and I can point to locations in our code right now where we still have carryover of carbon emissions, and we still have source energy in it. So we're not necessarily, the majority of it is site energy, but we have carryover. So just to give you that as a background. So looking on just site versus source, if you choose these, even though you could choose cost also. So basically, source energy looks at the whole picture, site energy just looks at the building. It's very apparent that one view is going to favor an energy source over the other. It's and so that's one thing to take in mind, that depending on what you choose, you're going to favor, because there's losses. Every time you convert one energy source to another energy source, there's efficiency losses. And so that causes a challenge. So EPA discusses this quite a bit. So I encourage you to go read on it. So statutes. So this always comes up, is how do the statutes play around? I'm not going to address any litigation. I'm not the expert on the litigation. Most of my knowledge is on hearsay from conflicting sources. But I do know the statutes, and I do know the direction that the council and Derek, our Assistant Attorney General, have, and I've read through these quite a bit. So, and these all come up. So in 2009, there was a bill that created their standard for how we have to have our mandate to reduce energy use by 70%. The terminology I'm using here is very specific. It's exact language pulled out, but I've made it concise. So it's not, I mean, you have to look to the actual statutes if you want to read the full description. But reduce energy usage is a big thing. Also, there was a provision saying we were supposed to go to zero fossil fuel buildings too. One thing to note is that in tension with that is EPCA basically preempts, so it does not allow states to regulate the energy use of appliances. Heating systems are considered appliances. Water heaters are appliances. So that creates a tension, because if your main energy usage is your appliance, how are states supposed to regulate energy efficiency? Well, EPCA does allow a bunch of exceptions, and if you meet all the exceptions, then you can regulate the appliance. So Ninth Circuit of Appeals had a lawsuit they ruled on that clarified EPCA and its applicability. That's why we went through and realized we had to strip out carbon emissions as our basis, because that wasn't congruent. Also, the zero fossil fuel provision in our code, it called that into question on whether that was allowed or not. So when I-26 passed, it didn't change things very much. I mean, it repealed the fossil fuel provision, but that was probably already not allowed anyways. So it doesn't change anything that. All 2066 did actually add in a provision saying you can't penalize gas. So that's something to consider in there. People always ask what CETA, so it's related, but it's not. So CETA applies to electric utilities. Basically has a couple provisions. The first one is by this year, December 31st this year, all coal generation must be limited in our state. And so you're going to see your utility bills are going to go up for any utility that has coal, because all that cost, and also explicitly states the cost of coal, decommissioning your coal plants or moving away, those will get embedded in increased rates. The second thing CETA did was it has a direction that you have to move to all non-emitting or renewable generation sources. Just to clarify, non-emitting would be like nuclear. It doesn't emit, but it's not renewable. Renewable generation sources, biomass would be considered that. Biomass is renewable, but it's not necessarily non-emitting. And then there's sources that are both non-emitting and renewable. But it's the mandating that utilities take all reasonable means to actually move to 100% by the year 2045. That's in 20 years. So just a note, it is adjacent in relevancy, but also to note is in there is the provisions on saying it's got to be all reasonable, and that's to be determined by the Utilities Commission. So there's a lot of debate on what is reasonable and economic and feasibility. Are we going to get there? That's being debated like crazy. So it's adjacent. It doesn't really address, so it's not 100% relevant. Especially if you're looking at source energy, you're already going to account for that. So I'm not going to, if there's questions, I have actual text of the experts of all these statutes, but I wasn't going to cover those unless there's questions on that. I will note real quick here, I have data that I'm for actual utility usage on how it matters. I have it right here for Vistas. I'm also willing, I heard feedback that people want to know, well, not just Vistas, but they want to know what the whole state of Washington's like. And I am working on right now to pull together hour by hour generation for the whole state of Washington. And I'm going to provide that to the council so you guys can actually see where the power comes from. So I'm working on that. If you have any requests for data, I can pull that. One thing to note is that on the generation source, your load has to match your generation in real time. There's folks 24/7 around the clock who are constantly making sure that generation matches the load. If they don't, then the grid shuts down. And so they're trading power, and they trade power across WEC, which is the Western Electric Coordinating Council. And so the whole Western, so we will buy and sell power to California, to Idaho, to Oregon, to Montana, and it's traded back and forth in real time. And so just a note, we're all interconnected. So we only have power over Washington State, but to realize that there's a bigger picture on what's happening and what decisions we make in Washington State may impact other states. And actually we might optimize our energy, but actually cause the energy in other states to go the opposite direction. So I'm not going to get into that today unless there's questions. But this is just kind of a view of what's going on. So I'll open it to questions.
Thank you, Greg. First is from Tom, please.
Yeah, so a couple of things came to mind during your presentation and listening to the public comment just before it. One is, and you touched on them a little bit, but maybe you have a little more detail, maybe you don't, but the targets for 2031, and that we are mandated to meet those, and we just don't really have any options. And so that seems to be a common thought. And so that's one thing that we should probably talk about. And then the other comment was about, reducing emissions, and the goal is to reduce emissions. And then we, so if you've got some clarifying information on that, so people can see it in black and white, that might not necessarily be the focus anymore. I'd appreciate seeing that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, so I have the actual an excerpt from our 19.27a.160. The key thing to note, the language says 70% reduction in annual net energy consumption. Doesn't define point of where you measure net energy consumption. Doesn't it also doesn't specify what the basis how you measure net energy consumption. So that's all ambiguous in the statute. And the baseline is a 2006 state energy code. So that's part of why this debate's happening. And this decision is because we're asking the council to make that decision on what is net energy consumption and where are we going to measure that. To note, we have to incrementally move towards it in every 3 years. The council does have the ability, if some reason economically, technically, or other process factors impede it, then you can defer it. But that's what the state statute is to answer that question. So did that answer the first half of your question by chance?
Yes, thank you.
And then the second was on carbon emissions. Just to make it plainly clear, it's if you're using natural gas to generate electricity, only a third of the energy actually makes it to the building. So you're burning 3 times as much gas to deliver the same amount of heat. And so that's really the crux of the issue is, are you going to consider the whole view and say, are we going to take into account what's the portfolio mix? How much is it gas? How much is it hydro? Are we going to equivalency for how much gas if you burn 3 times as much gas to create electricity and get the energy of the building versus burning it at the building? Are you going to account for things such as what's the efficiency of the heat pumps? Because heat pumps at certain temperatures are way more efficient than gas because they don't convert energy sources. They extract energy outside air and bring it indoors. So that means when it's 47 degrees, which I mentioned that specific temperature because that's usually where they're rated at, 47 degrees, it's really easy to pull heat out of the outdoor air. But when it drops to 0 degrees out, it's a much harder to extract heat out of the outdoor air and bring it indoors. And so then your efficiency drops. So that's all part of the complexity of this on like how much are you going to account for all that type of stuff. And so that's where the question comes on source versus site.
Okay, thank you, Greg. We'll recognize Representative Schmidt, please.
Yeah, so thank you, Greg, for being here today and for this slide presentation and your testimony. I would like a copy of this if you could send this to me. And actually, I'd like to follow up after this meeting with further conversation.
Yes, and Krista actually posted this presentation on the SBCC website.
Okay,
I'm happy to email it to you too.
No, that's fine. I'll download it from there.
It's a little hidden though. So you have to click on the upcoming meetings.
Okay.
The all events. And then once you click on that, then you have to go on the calendar and click on the council meeting. And then it's shown right here under presentation. And there's more content in this presentation. I have some supporting documents too. So if there's more stuff you guys want, I can pull more data because I have access to the raw data for the entire WEC, and I can pull data for every single balancing authority on what their energy source usage on an hourly basis.
Okay. Yeah, I'll download this, and then what I'll do is follow up with questions, and if I need, well, I'm sure I will want additional resources and information.
Okay, thank you. And Dustin and Krista, it seems like it might be possible we could put that up on the 2024 code change section, right, on the site, perhaps?
Yes, we
can. The commercial section. Okay, thank you. Chell, please.
Thanks, Greg. Great presentation. So Avista has a plan to comply with CETA, correct?
That is, we're us, just like all utilities, are doing everything we can to comply with CETA, and we have so we are going to do everything that's technically feasible Some of the ways to comply with CETA require advances in technology that aren't here yet. So that is the caveat. I mean, 20 years is a ways out, but also it takes a long time to build new generation and replace it. And so we're doing everything we can, but there's a lot of unknowns.
Is there a plan in place?
Yes, there's a plan, and in the plan listed initially, brand new for this year, we put in nuclear because nuclear is one of the ways we could get there. The challenge is nuclear takes
Yeah.
at least 30 years or more, and it's also billions of dollars. So, but that's actually listed in the plan, but that's being looked at. And so part of the plan is you're listing what you're anticipating you're looking at and what you're looking into, not what you've actually acquired or done yet. So that is the, and so we're doing everything we can. One of the biggest challenge is, and this is what's going to highlight the thing right here, is we can't build more hydro. We would love to build more hydro. We just can't do it. Variable wind and solar, when it gets, the percentage of that gets above a certain point, I mean, it's very important because it's great that it offsets the carbon, the natural gas and the carbon emissions. But when it gets above a certain point, the grid becomes unstable and you lose power because it can't deal with the changes. And so what we do is we, and like most utilities, we use gas as the peaking load. So when you get the peaks, you need a source that actually responds quickly. So when when everyone turns on their ovens all at once to cook dinner, you have to quickly turn up the generation to match the load. And gas is really good at doing that. The challenge is if you eliminate.
Californian.
What was that?
Batteries are also good at that.
They are, but they're super expensive, and we can't get the scale. Like you can't get the enough, and so the amount of battery storage is such a minute spec compared to the amount. So right here, you're looking at megawatts. So you can see that they were in gigawatts of power. You might get so we have a battery that we built, and it's like I think 4 megawatts. So you're like 4 compared to 2.2 gigawatts. So I mean, you're a magnitude so far away that it's not even remotely.
Have you looked at Texas or California and their deployment of gigawatts of batteries?
I have looked at it some, but if you look at their amount of energy usage for their amount of batteries, it's just a small little fraction of percentage. Actually, WEX started changing how the loads are classified. Just was it 6 months ago? They changed it where they would require that when you put on your variable sources, wind and solar, you actually separate out those wind and solars which had batteries paired with them and those which did not. And I don't want to disparage batteries. I think that batteries are great. In fact, there's another code proposal that the TAG is going to consider that's going to bring in having batteries paired with on-site renewables for the same reason that you brought up. So I have another proposal to start addressing that issue, but and that will make a big difference on the small scale. But on the big scale, it's not. I mean, it's not going to move the needle on the big scale.
Okay, we can talk offline about that.
But yeah, you bring up good questions and good points, and I think batteries are important. So I don't want to, you know what I mean?
But when I look at the CAISO, California's grid, batteries are a huge percentage of the peaking load in the afternoons and evenings and the mornings. So like a very, very noticeable piece of it at a state level. So I guess I'm wondering, well, I'll talk to you offline about that. But in the meantime, could you send the plan for Avista to get to CETA compliance? I'd like to.
Yeah, I can send you a link to where it's publicly posted. I'll definitely send you a link to that. And on California, I should just note, and where this is maybe more later, but California actually is requiring, they're not through the building code, but it's through the utility commissions requiring that new solar has to have battery backup for them to be able to do net metering because they've had a whole issue with what's called the duck curve. And I can go into detail on the technical of what's happening and where the problem is that's created. And we're actually seeing a little bit of that here, and I can show our local data for that, but nothing compared to what California's at the extreme.
All right, thanks, Greg.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Jay, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Greg, for the information. Lots of interesting stuff to delve in here for Avista. But there are, by my count, 14 other utilities that we're going to have to consider when looking at this code. When you look at the mix of generation with some of the information that you've provided, is this public information that is available, or is this things that you're sharing from Avista's point of view?
There is a lot of public info, and I can send you links to where you can pull it. So you can pull the hourly by hour generation from every balancing authority. Now, I should clarify balancing authority. So not every utility is a balancing authority. So balancing authorities are those utilities that are responsible for balancing load versus generation in their service territory. Your small utilities, a lot of them rely on BPA as being their balancing authority. So big balancing authorities in our state is Avista, Chelan PUD, Douglas PUD, Grant PUD, BPA, Puget Sound Energy. I think Seattle City and Light has a balance. They have a balancing authority. So there's so I can, and PG well, that's in Oregon. But anyway, so I can pull together the hour by hour data for that public from public data, and I can point you to where you can find that data too. Back right here is some data that was pulled from WEC, which is for the whole grid. You can see what the makeup of the whole grid is versus what Washington. One thing to note, Washington is a net exporter of energy. So when Washington says we're going to eliminate some of our gas and coal and we're going to go all renewables, we're going to rely a lot of this hydro that we used to export to other states like Idaho, Oregon, Montana, California. They're going to be to make up those sources in another way. And from what I've seen is the coal plant that we're divesting this year that's located in Montana. That coal plant output is not changed, is remaining the same or increasing. And so it's just that other states say, well, like Idaho is a least cost state and they'll happily take lower cost energy regardless of what its emission source. So that's to note that sometimes it doesn't impact the full system on what's really going on. Now,
that's a good
averages, not hour by hour, but I can pull more data and get you it.
That's a good segue to my next question, is that given CETA and other things, the energy mix is going to change over time. You present data through 2021. How often is this information that you're provided updated? Because a building code official's got to make a decision based on today, the application that's in front of them today.
So I have it as of last hour. So this data was merely because I pulled this last summer from WEC, and WEC had a really easy chart, so I didn't have to do any work. And WEC only listed it up through 2021. I think they've moved the link, so the link is now broken. But there's the energy information, so EIA.gov is actually, and I can provide you a link of where that's at. They can actually give you the hour by hour thing all up to date to the current mix, and you can download it. I've downloaded over 1 million data points for the last 5 years of hour by hour usage, but I have it in Excel and I haven't had a chance to actually put it in graph form, but I will do that for you guys, and I'll give you a breakout by every balancing authority in the state, and I can give you it very recently by hour.
I look forward to being able to drill into all this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Damon, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple questions, Greg. One, if we're buying a lot of power from these 11 states when we need it, how does that interface with CETA? if CETA says we can't use coal? Is that just here in Washington? But say, for example, we can buy coal generated power from Wyoming?
No, so CETA says that Washington cannot sell to retail customers coal. So that means that every utility who had part ownership in the Montana coal strip is forced to divest their interest in it. And a lot of them were forced to divest it as basically giving it away for free. So like give it away $1, and so that's what they were forced to do. So Washington utilities won't be able to use that power within the state. But one thing to note is the grid's all interconnected. And so that doesn't mean that the source isn't being used. It's just Washington customers aren't serving on it, but Idaho customers might be, or Montana. And then the other thing is that we're always trading power and the flow changes over time. So during 2024 on Martin Luther King Day, we had a major emergency and we bought power from California. Not only do we buy power from California, we hit the cap of $1,000 a megawatt price, which is astronomical. And not only did we hit the $1,000 price when we were in the emergency, we bought every single bit of power off the whole entire grid that was possible. And utilities were telling customers, you have to reduce power because we're on the verge of shutting down the grid and knocking out power to the entire region. So that's back in 2024. So we had an emergency that happened there. But I mean, most of the year we're sending power to California, but there's times when we'll buy California. In fact, there's even unique things that happen in the spring. When I'll show you when right over, if you look in the May, June months, you see that hydro's peaked out and you see that natural gas drops very, very low. So there's very little orange on that graph. Power prices actually go negative. They actually pay you to take power. And that's because when you have too much water behind the dam, you have to get rid of it. Otherwise you breach the dam, which would be bad. And so you can spill it, but you're limiting how much you spill it, because when you spill water, you create nitrogen in the water, which hurts the fish. And so you're required to run your power through the power plants, whether you need it or not. At the same time, in the spring, wind is also at the highest, and solar is pretty high too, because you have a lot of daylight hours. And wind and solar a lot of times have government incentives that allow them to generate power at a loss and still make money. And so you actually will have a situation where power prices drop negative and they pay you to take power. So there's some weird nuances that people don't realize. I mean, that's just a phenomenon only in the spring when you have the high flows in the river.
Okay, but again, if you look at the whole WEC map, there's times when we're buying power from any source in one of 11 states. It could be coal, we don't know.
So yeah, yellow, the net interchange. So there's two ways it happens. You have long-term contracts. So long-term contracts, you know what those sources are. You're contracted out outputs for those, and so those are usually included. Like in this graph, our long-term contracts out of the Mid-C, which is Douglas, Chelan, Grant, PUD. Those are included in the hydro on the blue. But when you buy things in real time in 5-minute intervals on the grid, you don't know what that is. So yellow, you don't know. Yellow could be gas and it could be hydro. So I can tell you in the spring months, it is most likely hydro that yellow is. But on the other months, it's usually gas. And usually the reason why because gas doesn't want to run, is not in the money, is what they say. And so they don't want to run it until it gets above a certain price per megawatt. And so when it gets above that certain threshold, everyone's firing up their gas because it's economical. And that yellow is oftentimes, so on peaks is where it's really in the money. And so that most of the time that yellow ends up being gas, but not always. You just don't know what it is. It's net interchange.
Okay, and it's interesting that when the demand is the highest, the peak of summer or peak of winter is when we're really using the gas. And Puget Sound Energy has a significant number of gas plants as well. Is that correct?
Yes, they have more gas than we do. And one insight that there's utilities like Seattle City and Light. I think 100% of their own generation is clean. But then if you dig deeper, you find out that they only have enough generation for half their load. And so they're buying the other half on the interchange. And I don't know, I'd have to dig deeper to find out what that makeup is. And I don't know, maybe someone from Seattle City and Light can weigh in on that. There are some utilities like Chelan, Douglas, and Grant. They own more generation than they need. They're basically all hydro, and they sell or contract out their hydro to the other utilities to make their makeup. So if you so it does vary across state, but you do have to look at a whole picture of what's happening on the whole system.
Great. Cool. Thank you, Greg.
Okay. I have a couple of questions. I might bring it back to the building here related to cost. And so this can help frame up our questions over the next 4 weeks or the input we're seeking in testimony, written testimony. So we have a couple cost requirements in our process that we're familiar with. The APA, the Administrative Procedure Act, requires that we have a cost benefit analysis on any of these petitions. Anytime we go into rulemaking, I should say, that's any agency. And so we talked a lot about that last council. Well, in our standing committee in the BRFW recently, because we're starting to flag other petitions for that need some work on the cost benefit analysis and the economic impact. So that's in our RCW in the APA. The other one I know of is, you referenced it, Greg, is 1927A 025. I don't know if that happens to be in one of your slides, but that's 020. I don't know if you have 025, but that's where.
No, 025, I think I referenced it.
Okay.
It's very similar to 020, but yeah.
It's very simple. I'll read it here. It's in section 1B. It says, any new measures, standards, or requirements adopted must be technically feasible, commercially available, and developed to yield the lowest overall cost to the building owner. And occupant while meeting the energy reduction goals established, so forth. So that's important that we also ask ourselves, what does that mean to develop the yield the lowest overall cost to the building owner, and what is that life cycle? Is it a life cycle cost? Is it so forth, right? How do we evaluate that? And then maybe get into a question to you as a utility. I'm familiar with, you have other requirements on energy efficiency and the different measures that you do and how you establish cost effectiveness, which to my memory is also guided by Northwest Power and Conservation Council. I'll call them rules. Maybe that's not the term, but can you talk a little bit about that? How a utility does cost effectiveness versus how we have to establish also cost benefit in our process?
Okay, there's two questions you asked. You mentioned about the first one you asked was about the cost effectiveness, and I think you're referring to the initial construction cost. Is that correct? On building?
Cost effectiveness as a utility when you're considering certain measures and how you look at, different, whether they're fossil fuel measures or they're for energy efficiency or they're electric measures.
But before that, you mentioned about building cost effectiveness when you're talking about the 025 provision. So I will first I'll touch on the building because I've designed a lot of commercial buildings in addition to utility systems. I've designed both. So on building systems, one of the big rubs and challenge is you have to have, so if you dig into heat pumps, heat pumps, awesome technology, but I don't think I have the slide for that here. But anyways, if you dig into heat pumps, when it gets certain cold temperature, they don't have either the capacity and they can't make the load. And so you need supplemental sources when it gets below a certain temperature. And so if that supplemental source is gas, then you put in a bunch of gas equipment. If the supplemental source is electric resistive, like boilers in a big commercial facility, then you're going to drive up your size of your utility service to an astronomical size, and you're also going to drive up the cost to an astronomical cost. And we're seeing that. So that is partially a separate debate if you're getting the supplemental heat. And that's a peripheral thing, but it does impact, like you mentioned, it does impact the cost, depending on what decision you make, can impact the cost of initial construction in addition to ongoing construction. Now, regarding utilities, here's the one I was on. This is the actual language. Electric utilities must pursue all cost-effective, reliable, and feasible to the maximum extent feasible. So that is the direction that CETA has required us. So pursuing all cost-effective. So there's now if you read through CETA, there's an acknowledgement that man, this is going to increase cost, and there's a lot of we have to do a lot of work to say, how do we make sure that when we're increasing costs, we're not unduly impacting those who are the poorest folks in our communities, and how we're going to deal with that. And that is a big challenge. Now, the actual interpretation, what's cost effective, reliable, and feasible, that's deferred to the utility commissions to help us figure out, and we work with them under their guidance. So we say this, we present them basically solutions saying, this is what we can do, what should we do, and they tell us. And so it's a collaboration, and we suggest that. So I don't really have a good answer on building, this is on building new resources. When it comes to operating your utility system, well, operating your utility system is a very simple thing of saying, well, you got to keep the lights on. And so you're going to use what sources you have available to keep the lights on. Utilities already prioritize your renewable sources because when the water is flowing, it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. If you're burning gas, it costs you, the cost of burning gas. So we already prioritize the green sources no matter what, because it's the most economical, it makes sense. And you're only using the gas when you have to keep the lights on.
Okay. No, thank you. I just trying to frame that question to and then seek more input over the next 4 weeks. So thank you. Tom, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Todd, and to your question too, I at one time sat in on an exercise at Avista that we were all in small groups. They gave us the tools and the metrics for all of the different load scenarios and the power generation costs. And they asked us to develop in small groups the most cost-effective way to generate and transmit that power to the sites based on the conditions that they set forward. And it was incredibly interesting, and there's a whole bunch of different variables, and I understand that they have a software tool that does this a little bit, probably more accurately than a bunch of knuckleheads around the table, but it was a pretty complicated process, that they go through to kind of figure out what their energy mix should be going forward. And, and a lot of it's a guess because, some of that technology, like Greg said, isn't yet developed.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I guess the way I was trying to frame the question was more at the building scale. And for transparency, I did used to sit on the Vista Energy Efficiency Technical Advisory Committee and went through those kind of exercises of cost effectiveness of certain measures at the building scale. And I'm trying to make that connection and seek in, feedback over the next 4 weeks on to help us as we are also looking at cost benefit analysis of these types of measures and rulemaking, and then also what does it mean for the overall cost to a building owner and occupant. So I think those are important points we have to think about over the next 4 weeks, and would love written and then verbal testimony on that. So okay, that was a lot. Any other council members have any questions for Greg as the proponent? Thank you, Greg, for all that. I see a couple hands. So we have this item with flagged for public comment. I've been tasked, and we talked about this at the executive committee. Again, we're not trying to deliberate today. We're not trying to take public comment on the merits of this. This is a chance for the proponent to present, and thank you for your time and answer questions. So I'm going to first, before I go to a couple hands here, please help me run this. We're not, again, gonna talk about the merits of the context, but rather how we can best over the next 4 weeks seek input and then have a public hearing on March 21st. Okay, let's give this a shot. Jim Lazar, please, first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Greg did a really good snapshot of the situation now for Avista. Every utility is different, as he mentioned, from most of the public power utilities with very little carbon generation to Puget and Pacific with on the order of half of their generation still coming from fossil sources. The presentation was a more elegant version of something I did in 1990 when I was advocating electric to gas conversions. But a lot has changed since 1990. Wind and solar were not really resources.
Jim, may I interrupt? And I really appreciate the context comments, but we are really, can we limit our input here to talking about the next 4 weeks and how what type of written testimony we're seeking, and then culminating in a hearing where we also will take verbal testimony. So I apologize for being rude. I just want to try to contain this today to what the next 4 weeks looks like for us.
So the council needs to don't skate to where the puck is. Skate to where the puck is going. All right. The new buildings are built for a long life. We use 70 years for residential in the Northwest Power Planning Council process. You need to look at what the power system will look like over the life of these buildings. Fossil generation will be at 0 by 2045. The vast majority of the life of these new buildings will be in an era where the presentation that Gregory just gave us is largely irrelevant. And that's the focus that I think you need to be asking the public to comment on over the next 4 weeks. Ask the utilities where their generation will be at in 2095, at the end of the life of these buildings, or in 2065, the midpoint of the life of these buildings. That's where you really need to be doing the analysis, is over the life of the buildings, not where things are at today. And the combination of the cost effectiveness language, which is in a different section of the RCW 8052030, says you have to look at the system cost over the life cycle. And that's really where I think the council's focus should be, not on where we are today, but where we will be over the life of new buildings that are built tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. Love the hockey reference. That was helpful. Okay, we're going to go to Johnny, please.
Yeah, I guess I kind of have more of a process question. Yeah, how did this? There was a special council meeting in which it was decided that this was going to be a subject of discussion, and then we had a presentation, which frankly I thought was one-sided from an organization that benefits from having one of these metrics being decided over the other, and who's also party to a lawsuit against the State Building Code Council on the merits of fuel switching. So I'm just kind of interested in like why was there a 15-minute long presentation that was, in my opinion, pretty extremely biased, that was then we're not able to comment on before you make a decision whether or not to even argue the merits of this at all.
Okay, thank you, Johnny. And we've tried to be as transparent as possible here, including having that executive meeting on Tuesday to discuss this in a public forum. So what we're trying, so first of all, to your question, this is a petition that was submitted, as you know, just like any other petition to the Washington State Energy Code Commercial 2024 amendments. In the tag, I think, as you know, the tag took action to ask for help from the full council. So they essentially, this was referred down to the tag, and with or without action, the tag can always, seek help from the council on that process. That's an advisory process, of course. So that's the action that they took about a week or so ago to ask the full council for guidance on how to frame this question. So that's how we got to the petition being raised back up to the full council. In that, then, as we were preparing for this, we brought it to the executive committee to talk about what the best process is, whether we raise it to the full council today at this regularly scheduled meeting, and then when would we propose to take action. So that proposed action is on March 21st. So then in that, we could have opened up to all public comment today on the subject matter and the merits of it, or we can say we're opening the testimony for written testimony over the next 4 weeks, and then verbal, and that's what we came to agreement on in the executive committee. To your point on the presentation, Greg is the proponent, and your comments are fair. I mean, to give that opinion. But it was, in this case, we were allowing the proponent to introduce their petition and take questions directly from the council. So I hope that addresses that, but that's we're trying our best to be very transparent about this and create a fair process. So, okay, Micah, please. And we can probably take down the presentation if that's helpful. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Awesome. Appreciate it. I appreciate Johnny's point on that. I think this is a very interesting topic, and for it to have a presentation in front of the council before the TAG makes a decision, I think does a disservice to those that provided EV charging proposals that the TAG requested this same process and was denied, in my opinion. So I think it's a little biased on this proposal, and I believe that the council should revise how they go about doing these in the future, because there were other items in the building code tag that had similar requests for council direction on policy, and it didn't go through the same process. Second, I do want to talk about or get more back to the proposal itself. I know we're not debating it. However, the question is about site and source. In Chael's opening remarks, he indicated that he did study significantly the EPCA, and we went through and modified the 2021 because of EPCA. And Chael indicated that that is a site source, kind of in his determination. I think that the question needs to be posed to the Attorney General representing the Building Council as whether or not that interpretation of a law that is outside our RCWs is the appropriate direction. I think that would provide the answer outside of a rulemaking process instead of this whole, presentation. And I agree this seemed one-sided. But again, I think that's a determination that needs to be made by the Attorney General's office on whether or not source would violate EPCA. And if site is the correct direction based under EPCA, then that's the direction that it shouldn't be up for debate. Thanks.
Okay, Mike, and just to respond, just so everybody knows what you're talking about there. So on the building code side, the 3 petitions that were recommended, knowing that they're all addressing the same table and that there has to be some decision made by the council to bring those together or to simply deny them. Those did come up to the full council, and you're right, it is a different process because the council then referred them back to the standing committee, the BRFW committee, to conduct more public process. So in the executive committee on Tuesday, that was discussed as an option. Should this be referred down to the standing committee, in this case, the MVPE, to conduct more of this public process? That was discussed in that meeting. And it was decided that we would try this process where we would take it to, we would do a 4-week process where we would do then full council action. So I think those are fair comments, and I think it's up to the, I appreciate that feedback, because that's the kind of thing we need to discuss, as a council. We don't have, to my knowledge, policies and procedures on this type of situation, and maybe in the future this will lead to that type of development. Okay. Micah, did you have a follow-up to that?
I appreciate the information, Todd. I apologize I couldn't attend the executive committee. I have other obligations as well. I guess the question is there going to be a determination on that EPCA interpretation from a tag chair from the Attorney General representing the SBCC, and maybe Derek's on and can answer that. And that, I think that would benefit or greatly benefit this public process in the next 4 weeks.
Okay, thanks for raising that.
Yep.
Go
Mike,
ahead.
Listen, Mike, I'm here. Thanks, Chair. And I stand ready to assist the council at the council's direction.
Thanks for raising that point. I see Poppy Storm, please.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. I strongly agree with Micah's comments and request. I also think that if we do move forward beyond that and have a debate, we really need a robust debate and discourse. And I think that this was fairly one-sided, so it kind of was inherently calling into question site energy versus source energy. And I think that that was not balanced. And I would request that moving forward, we have more balanced presentations. If there are to be presentations, there needs to be balanced time on both sides to really explicate the information on both sides. And we need to be discussing not only the merits of site versus source, but also the implication of making this kind of transition. So I'm not going to go, pardon me, I'm not going to go into those details right now, but there are a lot of implications for doing this type of transition. And I think we really need to go through those, and the council really needs to understand what it would mean to switch to source-based energy for the entire code, where the entire code would have to be reanalyzed, and we would need a new source energy baseline for 2006, et cetera. So those are my requests. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Poppy. And I think related to the previous questions here is, do you feel that 4 weeks of written testimony and a hearing in 4 weeks, where we will also allow more verbal testimony, is sufficient to inform the council? I think that's really the question on hand. The topic, the petition, has now been introduced. That was the intent for today. And now we are beginning that process. And I think that's my question also, is that sufficient to come to a decision by this council? Go ahead, Chell.
Yeah, I think it's sufficient. I think it's a decent plan. I would, to the question asked by Micah, love to have any feedback by the Attorney General's office on if EFCA precludes us from even having this, even considering whether source energy would be a way forward in compliance with EPCA. So I guess when it comes time to make a motion to open a hearing, I'm happy to do that, but there's a couple public folks that still have their hands up, so I wanted to wait until they speak before I make that motion.
Yes, but we're still taking public input. So, but I'm asking the council here to also help frame this. So Katie, go ahead, and then I'll come back to Poppy. I saw your hand up.
Sorry, I was raising my hand for after public comment.
Okay,
so
okay. We'll
I'm
come back.
happy for the rest
Thank
of
you,
it.
Katie. Poppy, did you have a response to a question?
Yeah, I just had a follow-up in response to your question, Todd, and that's that I agree with Chell that to a certain degree, the 4 weeks is enough, but it's not actually enough to decide on what those source energy metrics would be if we were to switch over to that. And that actually is a huge part of the decision for whether or not you would do it in the first place. So no, I don't think it's actually enough time, because I don't know that you will really understand the implications of how difficult it will actually be to even set those factors.
Okay, thank you. That's important feedback. Okay, we have 2 more hands. Tim Atterbury, please.
Yeah, Tim Atterbury, Associated General Contractors of Washington. I've been listening to council members and the public talk about natural gas for 2 or 3 years here. Heard lots of testimony, heard lots of debate. I just want to congratulate Greg on the best presentation I've seen on the topic. I think Greg just hit a home run. I think Greg should be the expert that the council listens to the most. And I think that was obvious and not close. I want to compliment Greg on a very well thought out presentation, and congrats to him on providing us with his experience. And I'm just impressed with what I just saw with Greg. It's the best thing I've seen.
Thank you for that feedback, Tim. Okay, Patrick Hanks.
Thank you. Patrick Hanks with the Building Industry Association of Washington here. I also want to thank Greg for the work he put into this presentation on a rather short notice. The data he presented was very factual and unbiased. He's extremely well qualified to speak on this topic, and then also being the proponent of that particular petition. I want to thank the TAG for sending this to council for consideration, and thank the council members for carefully considering this. It's an extremely important topic and discussion. It has the potential to greatly improve the ability of the code to account for the total energy efficiency of the built environment. We look forward to submitting public comment on the substance of this topic and having the council further research and understand it as they make a decision next month that can greatly improve the code. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Okay, with that, I'm going to close the public comment and then move it back to the council for discussion and any potential motion on our process. So Katie, please.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the all the work that went into this. I think this is a question mostly for Chell. Is this going to delay your tag? This, and so, yeah, that's my first question. Then I have a follow-up.
I guess I have a motion ready to go, but that would direct the tag to use site energy until such time as council makes a final decision on this after the hearing. And that would provide enough direction for the tag to move forward until such time as this council makes a decision.
I would second that motion.
It wasn't a motion, it wasn't a response, but that's the motion I have ready.
Well, I'm letting you know I would second that motion.
Officially, that's okay. Thank you for both of that. Officially, that's parked, and we'll come back to it.
Okay, I mean, and because I appreciate that this is a issue. My understanding is that we've used site for a long time. And so I guess my question is, why is it coming up now in the sort of middle? It looks like the proposal got submitted on the 14th. And if this was an issue that needed to arise, it feels like it should have been initiated before that. And so I'm wondering why the issue is coming up now.
Katie, maybe I can help a little bit on that, and Chell, add to this, please. So I was listening in a little bit to the tag, and this was submitted as an external petition, just like any other petition. So that is that pathway, that process. And I think the relevant question I heard during the tag meeting was, well, if this is not the process, when would this bigger question be asked, right? So set aside any merit of a petition. When it's something this fundamental, the question was, if not an external petition, when would this be considered, right? Whether that's legislative mandate, whether that's emergency, so forth. But that is a question now to the council I'm raising of our process and our policies, and also what is mandated to us in our process. So
okay,
I don't have the answer. That is why the tag asked for us to bring it up and weigh in while they're going through this. And to your question, that's when my understanding, Chell, that's when it was, you got to it with the tag, was only a week ago.
Yes, and I'll just, since I was asked a question, I'll respond, which is, this council, it's been brought up many, many, many times that, site versus source as a potential issue. And at some point we need to resolve it. So this would be that time. And even before the petition was submitted, last year, the year before that, in fact, my very first council meeting was also included site versus source discussion, which was many years ago.
I mean, I remember it and I remember it coming up, but it feels like an unnecessary delay now. We could have gotten those proposals before this, and it feels like it's not very timely. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about it in the next couple weeks.
Okay, Damon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's important to note that prior to 2018, we weren't debating site versus source. 2018 is when we introduced fuel normalization and then energy equalization. So, prior to that, we were focused on carbon emissions all the way up until EPCA. And then EPCA, we went, okay, we've got to switch away from carbon emissions and follow the federal statute. There's no reason for Washington to be an outlier. As mentioned, EPA, Department of Energy, all consider source energy. Energy Star considers source energy. We are kind of the outlier here in Washington State. Could you please pull up the proposal or petition on the screen? Just to bring this back to Todd, where I think you attempted to start or are trying to keep us at, I move that we open up for public comment the two options on the screen and schedule a debate for the upcoming council meeting.
Second.
Okay, so, and Chell, and we will come back to your motion also, but so it's been moved and seconded that we begin this 4-week process to get written testimony. And then what I heard and proposed is verbal testimony on the March 21st council meeting. And then we're not, and then there's potential action there. It's not dictating that, what the action is, of course. Okay, so let's keep going with council members then. Jay?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions and I'll try to relate them to the motion that we're talking about. To begin with, for these larger policy questions in other areas, we've often put options out for public comment during our standard 60-day public comment period and decide the issues with every other issue as we come through in the fall. I've heard it asserted, but if you told me the reasons why, I couldn't articulate them back. What is the reason that the tag felt that we needed to decide this issue now versus considering this petition as part of every other change to the code, the energy code that's presented? Chell, can you talk a little bit about why the tag was asking for council direction and what's the implication of continuing in our normal process?
Yeah. So this is from my recollection of the tag meeting where we forwarded this to the Building Code Council. I'd say there's a few reasons. One is that, while every tag meeting is a hearing of sorts, we have a lot of code proposals to get through, and spending a few hours on a hearing for site versus source would take a long time. And we frankly are going to be challenged to meet our deadlines as is. So I think another reason is that this is a bigger decision. And as a few people have mentioned, including you, it has knock-on effects. The calculations for credits, one of the proposals that the tag did accept was to publish an appendix online or in other places, perhaps, of the calculations that underlie the credits in the commercial energy code. That those calculations would be changed by a decision to use source instead of site. So there'd be recalculations and a bunch of other things. that probably would be easier to have now than in a CR 102 process. So I guess this is, the council could have taken this up a year ago, could have taken it up 6 months ago. It's here now. It's on our doorstep. And I think it would be good if we did make a decision on this, and that would get both tags, both commercial and the residential, to be able to have a quicker process, because then it wouldn't be brought up at every single tag meeting. Oh, well, if we use source, we would do this. If we use site, we would do this. It just has, and then also council meetings. We have lots of council meetings where somebody brings up source energy as the better metric. And then we have, we spend half an hour on that. So I think, can we do conclusion on it? And I guess we probably could and should come to a conclusion the next meeting if this motion goes through. But I don't know that we are required to do so. But when we do, that will help expedite tag work.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And then secondly, David's motion had the public hearing at the next meeting, and I expect both, because this is a complex technical issue and because of the big implications on it, that we're going to be hearing a lot of public comments on this. And I am concerned that we have a chance to have a full public comment among any other business scheduled for our March meeting, and want to keep open the option for a separate public hearing, which might, if David already hadn't made a motion, might have been something to consider, but maybe it gets the option of continuing to a public hearing depending on how much feedback we get on March 21st. I'm also, it may be very clear. There's some circumstances where things may be very clear that we're able to make the decision the same day. I generally don't like to make decisions on the same day of a public hearing on a particular contentious issue. So I want to make sure that any action is potential action on the 21st, but we also have the opportunity to continue the public hearing and or take action at a later date based on what we hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
If I could clarify.
Go ahead, Damon.
The motion, we're not just taking public, but also taking written comment between now and then. And certainly this does not preclude or suggest the council do anything at that meeting. However, it would be my hope that we would come to a conclusion at that meeting and be able to move on with other business.
And I think, Jay, to your point, I think you're suggesting that this is a pretty dedicated meeting specifically to this. And if we have a lot of other business, that could be a challenge on March 21st. Right now, we don't think we do, but okay. Chell, go ahead.
I'm going to make an amendatory motion to the motion that's on the floor currently. I just sent it to Dustin. It would open public comment for proposal 206. It would do 3 other things. It would direct the tag to continue to use site energy until the council decides. Number 2, hold a hearing at the next council meeting for a potential decision, but have a preference for written comments submitted ahead of time. This is a technical issue, and I think we need written comments ahead of time. And I think the window for written comments should close on the Friday or some other day before the hearing, so that we actually have time to read them as council members, and then time limited live comment, because we do expect this to take a lot of time. And then number 3, ask Derek in the AG's office if using source puts council at risk to use source energy in relationship to EPCA. And these are just collecting comments that have been said already. But that's my amendatory motion.
I'd second that unless Damon thought that was a friendly motion he was comfortable with.
I don't see anything on here that I'm uncomfortable with. I will note that the IECC, which is very EPCA sensitive, uses source energy, so.
So Damon, are you treating that as a friendly amendment?
I will if the second agrees.
Is that Tom?
Yeah, I'll go along with that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so is there any other discussion?
I guess I wanted to bring up, right now I have the Friday before the hearing, which would give about 3 weeks. But I'm happy to make it, I was thinking if it was the Friday before the hearing, then we could review over the weekend. Because we all work for a living. But if we thought that that wasn't enough time, it could be perhaps the Monday, but that would just mean we're reviewing these technical documents during the week.
Joe, I guess for clarification, what do we, when we say preference, are we saying that written documents outweigh verbal?
Yeah, I guess maybe that wasn't yeah, I guess I've been thinking that written documents would, to me, lay out a clearer path and allow me to think, to Jay's point of not making a decision where the first time you hear about one point of view is at the meeting. Ideally, all points of view, all major points of view would be, we'd have them ahead of time so that we could make thoughtful decisions, to your point of maybe probably making a decision at the meeting. So if the word preference is bothersome, we can remove it. I feel like I will need time to digest all the written stuff.
Chair, do you mind if I jump in for a second?
Please, yeah.
Yeah, I think too, so I want to flag a concern that I would have that the word preference could create some uncertainty or ambiguity about what the council is, what the motion would intend the council to do with respect to potentially weighing the presentations. And so, a statement that you encourage written testimony or written statements would be preferable, I think, to avoid that uncertainty.
That was the word that came to my mind. Yeah.
Oh, it's our great minds, Todd.
Yeah, right. Angela, go ahead. Thank you, Derek.
I would just like to say that, yeah, on a topic like this, I definitely agree with the time limit for the live comments also. I mean, it kind of goes right along with legislation when, they're trying to keep things in line and you have a minute or 2 minutes. And that might also encourage people to give written testimony ahead of time that they can simply reference when giving their verbal testimony also.
Thank you, Angela. I agree. And that was the intent, is to limit it to 2 or 3 minutes and then reference your written testimony, but not be completely redundant. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, and as far as timing goes, it could be that other things come up, that this meeting needs to attend to. And this could perhaps take quite some time. Would then the preference be to get through this at that meeting and then maybe continue the meeting to a special meeting, or move other action to a special meeting afterwards if this goes long? Or what's kind of the intent there? Would this be kind of first up, first served on the agenda?
I think that's a good recommendation, is that this is the priority for the meeting. And perhaps we look at other business, whether we really need to address it on that day, or this is primarily a dedicated meeting towards this hearing, which we've done in the past. The other option is we would have this on the Thursday before and then have the actual council meeting without public comment on Friday, where we're taking potential action, right? That could be the alternative. And that's also, as we discussed, as in the executive committee, whether or not the council would hold that hearing or the standing committee, so forth. But the request from the TAG and from the executive committee was, let's do this as the full council. So, okay, go ahead, Shel.
Yeah, I guess my hope would be if we get lots of written comments, then we could cover this in perhaps 2 hours or maybe 3 hours, and it wouldn't we could take care of some other business perhaps at the meeting.
Yeah.
Before this would be, I guess, my hope, but I think we could spend 8 hours on this or 16 hours on this, but that, if we can get the written comments, we can be on topic and on task.
Agreed. Okay. Are we ready? So first of all, we amended it to make sure with Damon and Tom, do you agree as written on the screen?
As far as the amendments, yes.
Yeah, except number 3 looks like it's using source and using sources twice in that sentence.
Yeah.
Is that intended?
Yeah, it's not a great sentence. Obviously, it was not ChatGPT.
Seems like you can strike to use source energy at the end there.
Correct.
Yeah, one of the two should probably go away. Seems you've done it.
There you go. All agree, Damon, Tom?
Yeah.
Okay.
And-
Katie, go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
I was
Damon.
gonna say, Derek, I don't know how long it would take you to weigh into that, because I'm imagining you got to do a little research, and maybe that would be relevant to bring up prior to discussion at the next meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of contemplating how this is all going to sort through, because obviously if we're going to provide I mean, I can tell you from the very quick research that I've done on this issue, and this isn't going to surprise Greg or others, there's not a ton of authority out there on this general question. There's a lot of information, maybe some opinions, but nothing that we could point to specifically that would say, here's the controlling authority. Something like lawyers like to do to create finality and confidence with their clients. Say, here's what a judge has said about this, or here's what a regulatory authority has said. So I always welcome getting insight from folks who are smarter than me, folks in the in industry or the environmental community who's given some thought to this, and seeing written material would be helpful. But I do understand from your motion that you will be wanting our office to be prepared to provide advice to you at the next meeting, and we'll have to work through how that makes sense the most.
Back to Katie.
Yeah, actually, my question is kind of along a similar vein. I wonder if this whole conversation is a policy question that would be better directed to the legislature. And so I'm wondering if there's anything clarifying. I'm in my quick review, I didn't see if is there a definition in our RCWs that tell us what that line is, Dirk, and is that something that you could maybe also address?
There's not. If we're talking about the, so I agree with Greg. He cited, with the exception of I think it was what Todd pointed out, he cited all the relevant state statutes. I would note that the baseline for determining energy efficiency is consumption, which I think is relevant to this discussion. And that's the baseline that's established, or the metric that's identified in statute. That's the most that I could say, at least on the text of the statute. There's maybe undoubtedly some legislative history that can kind of more inform what the legislature's understanding or expectation was when it used those words. And that's something that, to move forward and take a closer look at that, that would be one of the things we'd consider.
And Katie, I think to your question, we're in motion on this. This is the 3-year cycle, and was received as an external petition. So, so we have to take action. The TAG can take action and simply deny the petition if that was their desire. And I guess that would just leave as is. Because if they denied it, we wouldn't have the ability as the council to even hear it. But as this has already moved back up to the council, we're considering that. Or obviously the legislative pathway is their prerogative, and the legislature could still do that, although they're at policy cutoff today, so it probably won't happen this year. So, and then the third is, of course, emergency, basis was established, and we went into rulemaking. So,
Thank you.
Okay, Chell, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess we could remove number 3 if it's gonna just be onerous or give us just a kind of a non-answer
Yeah,
or
well, I don't
something
want to
like
say
that.
non-answer, Chill, but let me just say this, and I want everyone to represent this. I'm here to help if you need, me or smarter people than me to help work through these issues or even speak at the next meeting. You don't need a motion to tell me to do that.
Okay, then maybe let's remove it. I mean, I guess we could remove it from the motion and just ask it outside of the motion to, if there's anything worth sharing, that would be worth, let's hear it.
Your definition of worth sharing might be different than mine or Micah's.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would disagree as the maker of the motion. I think that this is an important component. Because Chell, I know that you've relied on this a lot, and I tend to disagree that EPCA leans toward one or the other. So I would really, I think it's very relevant to the discussion to have this portion determined.
Okay. One other thing Dirk said, which is the word consumption in the RCW that talks about, I would love to have, I guess, that also, when I think of consumption, like if you eat a piece of bread and that is, you are consuming the piece of bread, you're not also including the piece of bread that the baker ate when they were baking the bread. You're, plain language seems like you're consuming a piece of bread and you don't take into account all the other pieces of bread that people ate to make your bread. So that appears to me that plain language that it's site, but I would
so
be interested
that might-
in.
Yeah, Chell, happy to look into that. I want to
Okay.
make sure that the council fully kind of understands at least what I think and our office thinks the legal landscape looks like. You know, without clearer language, I'll just say this, the council, just like any other agency or regulatory agency, is going to has a role in kind of trying to figure out what this language means. There's not, we don't tell you, or your lawyers don't tell you, well, consumption means this, and therefore you have to do something. But I definitely would want to help you work through potentially what the implications are. The EPIC question is a little different because the EPIC question would implicate whether you have to do this under federal law. There has to be one methodology used over another methodology. And that creates preemption issues and other types of issues. And so even though it's kind of the same question, there's different implications for it, all of which is the long lawyerly way of saying, I'm happy to work with you at your direction.
Okay, would that wouldn't need to be part of the motion if we're looking at the word consumption and that part of the RCW, right? Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to work with you and work you through these legal issues at your direction.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, council, I think we're ready. It's a lot of information and I think we've teed this up well. So I think we can try a voice vote on this. So the motion, it's been moved and seconded that we introduce this process for the next 4 weeks, culminating March 21st, as shown on the screen. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Let me be clear that it's the motion to consider the proposal with the amendments on the screen.
Correct. Sorry if that wasn't clear. Yes. Everyone understood that in their vote? Okay. With your vote, then we will begin. We will open the window for public written testimony and proceed with the hearing on March 21st. Okay, Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Chair, I move for a 10-minute recess.
You were 10 seconds ahead of me on that one. Let's say 12 minute and call it 12:10, please. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Welcome back, everyone. We will monitor that we have all council members present for quorum as we move into this next agenda item we can see on our Zoom panel. So with that, let's move into agenda item 6, which is a local amendment for Airway Heights.
Sharing the screen here. And then we should have the building official for Airway Heights here as well, and I'm gonna promote them to a panelist. And we should be having them step over in just a second now. All right, so let me introduce Mike Michaela, the building official for Airway Heights. And I will turn it over to you, Mike, to introduce the local amendment and the reasons why you are requesting the local amendment.
Sure. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So again, Mike Maclaw, I'm actually the fire code official, the fire marshal for the city of Airway Heights, not the building official. But I bring to you today this proposal for the city of Airway Heights to move forward in exploring the option and allowing our city council the option to adopt a residential fire sprinkler ordinance in 1 and 2 families by making amendments to the IRC where residential sprinklers were positioned within the code. So they're already allowed under townhomes in certain conditions, but not in 1 and 2 family dwellings. Where this stems from in our community is that we've been working on the introduction and allowance in code of the middle housing that's been passed by the legislator, and what it's going to look like in our community on existing lots by adding, essentially, we already have the ADUs, but by allowing additional residential, single family residential units, various styles, to be constructed on existing lots with an existing single family home on them, how that would impact and possibly impede fire suppression services. And because of that legislation, if I were to propose a residential sprinkler ordinance in these middle housing units, ADUs and what have you, I also have to treat 1 and 2 families the same way. Meaning, as y'all may know, I can't treat the middle housing or 80 units any differently than I would treat a 1 and 2 family dwelling in town. So I bring this proposal to you before I go to my council, even though I've done some background work with the city in trying to get that first step. I want to have the horse in front of the cart as I move forward within my community. So before you have my proposed amendment. I hope I completed that form correctly for everybody. So you can see my code language in there by adding the R313.2 back in there, which was deleted under the state amendments for the IRC. And then under my exceptions, I've eliminated 1 or 2 of the exceptions that would have been in the standard IRC to fit the community. And then I've added the language in there that shows what middle housing units Airway Heights has chosen to move forward with, the 6 minimum there. And I've specifically called them out. That may change at some point as our planning department continues moving forward with our city council and our planning commission on what 6 styles of housing there will be. But regardless of what 6 styles of the 9 that they choose, the intent is, as long as it falls within the bounds of the IRC, that this ordinance would allow us to move forward with considering sprinklering of those units. Airway Heights, for those who don't know, Airway Heights is a small community on the southwestern boundary of the city of Spokane. We are I would classify our residents as low middle income community, and we're primarily a residential community. We have approximately 11,000 residents. The fire department operates from one fire station, and we staff one single fire engine. Our call volume exceeds 2,500 calls a year, primarily EMS, but that call volume with a single engine company oftentimes has us running 2 and 3 emergency responses at the same time. So we have to get creative and rely on others to come in for mutual aid or auto aid into the city in order to handle our call volume. The sprinkler ordinance is one of those that would allow us to have that fire protection in our 1 and 2 family homes in case during a fire occurs while we are out on a call and our neighboring mutual aid agency is also on another call for us. At that point, we are so stretched thin and don't have the resources then to respond to a single family fire in the community. And by having sprinklers in the home, it's like having a firefighter standing by on the nozzle ready to go all the time. So it'll drastically help our resources as we add additional residential units into our community. This is not going to be a retroactive ordinance. It's only going to be moving forward on brand new construction, whether that be the ADUs, the middle housing, up to 2 additional units on a single family lot that has an existing single family home, or new construction, as we still have subdivisions yet to be built. And those are primarily platted right now as single family, 1 and 2 family homes, mostly duplexes, but the middle housing might change that up to 4 units before we get into the commercial building code, the international building code for apartments and such. So really, this is our step. We're asking you to allow us to do this. I have referenced 6 other communities in the state of Washington that already have residential sprinkler ordinances in 1 and 2 family homes. 5 of those 6 that I reference also have it in their current language to have ADUs, accessory dwelling units, also sprinklered and included in their sprinkler ordinance for 1 and 2 family homes. So this is nothing new in the state of Washington. While it's not all that common, it's not new. What I'm asking for, in addition to those, what I'm asking for is for you to allow me those 1 and 2 family homes as well as the ADUs, but go one step forward to include this middle housing development, which is new to the state, and allow us the option once we go to city council, and allow my city council the option of implementing or adopting an ordinance that would allow us to adopt a 1 and 2 family residential sprinkler ordinance.
Okay, well, thank you. Is it Deputy Chief McKella? Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for joining us today. Dustin, could you pull up our WACs, please, 5104, just to remind everybody what we're doing here. So 5104-030 is our policies and statutory authority for consideration of proposed local government residential amendments. This is residential, so that's why it's coming forward. I think maybe I didn't understand. This is actually a different, if you go back out to 5104, this is a request for pre-approval. Is that correct? At this point?
Well, I was under the impression this was for the final approval. It hasn't been adopted. It doesn't have a resolution number yet for the local adoption.
Okay, so that would be pre-approval then, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, no, thank you for that. And we always appreciate when jurisdictions bring forward something for pre-approval before it's brought into ordinance or resolution at the local level. So, so if everyone understands what we're doing, actually, can you go out to 5104? Then this actually falls under the pre-approval section, right? Which is 037. Am I correct in this? Go ahead, Angela. While I'm
I just had a couple of questions on the actual proposal, but so if you want to go finish this.
Nope. I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly and the council is understanding this correctly. and then we can absolutely get into the merits. So go ahead, Angela.
So I just have a couple of questions. So you had said that this is basically, are you meaning for this to apply to all IRC structures?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you haven't listed adult family homes, which
Oh,
are
okay.
IRC structures and are not considered single family or anything. They are their own, they have their own chapter, in fact.
Okay, so yes, ma'am, then you've corrected me there. I do not, what my intent is 1 and 2 family homes. So if it's a group home or what you just mentioned, that's not going to be covered in this. What you see in front of you is what I'm looking at.
Okay, so you're not looking to expand it to adult family homes. Okay. And then next you list triplexes and fourplexes. Under the IRC, those are townhouses. So wouldn't it be easier just to say all townhouses instead of, I mean, you've crossed out the exception. So wouldn't that already be covered above? I mean, I'm just trying to get for good code language.
Sure. My intent there was to list out, so our planning director in the adoption of the middle housing development for the city of Airway Heights in her proposal, those are the units where I have an R13 3.2. The specific ones that she listed that would fall under the IRC, and that's why I relisted them specifically, because our planning ordinance for them, this is how they will be listed out. So that's why I listed them again. So even if they're considered a triplex or fourplex would be considered a townhome, it'll still be covered. And if that needs to be cleaned up at the city's end, if and when this goes to city council, then we could clean it up at that time.
Yeah, because I would just like to point out that none of those terms are defined in the IRC, and including, I don't believe ADU is a defined term, is it? It's only used once in the code in section 302, whatever, for fire separation and existing. So I just would caution about putting a lot of zoning code terms in here that aren't defined. For the IRC, you know, a dwelling unit is a dwelling unit kind of thing. So I mean, you could leave them in there, but I would just caution against that for good code writing, I guess.
Yes, ma'am. I understand completely.
But that's all. I don't have anything against this at all, but yeah.
Thank you.
Again, thank you, Angela. Jay, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Deputy Chief, I have a couple of questions. First, I want to look at requirements for middle housing and making sure that they aren't any more disadvantaged than what's happening in single family housing. And I'm wondering if you could talk to a couple of different things. You mentioned parking and extended hose length given structures on the back of a lot. And I'm wondering, in the case of a single family home, wouldn't you have these same problems that, you know, the parking could be filled up today and a structure could be built in the back of a lot? And so could you talk a little bit about why this is focusing on middle housing versus having these requirements across single family homes, given the challenges you've laid out as a small department?
Yes, sir. So on our end, initially the talk was with the bringing in of the middle housing, of how would we, as the fire department, operate and be able to effectively address a fire in a structure that's built, say, in the backyard of an existing single family lot. There's a house, the house is set back 50 feet off the street. And then they want to build in our city, they would be allowed to build up to 2 additional homes, not exceeding 1,000 square feet each, like in the backyard. And so if all these existing neighborhoods, people chose to do that and they have the footprint of their lot and the space and allowed to do it, how would we be able, as the fire department, how would we be able to actively get back there? Again, bring in hose lines and personnel and all of our equipment to get back there and to fight a fire involving a structure back there, a residential unit. So the planning director at that point is the one who educated us that if we were looking at doing this for this middle housing, we could not treat them any differently than we would a single family home that's going to be built in the community. So that's why I'm writing this to include all 1 and 2 family homes. So those, even though the middle housing units, however you want to define them, cottage housing, courtyard apartments, ADUs, accessory dwelling units, they're all essentially a single family structure, and wherever they're placed on the lot. So if we build a single family home on a new lot, there's nothing that's going to be in the code at the local level that will prevent us from them adding an ADU in the future or building these additional middle housing units down the road. Just because today it's a 1 or 2 family home doesn't mean down the road that they're not going to add additional structures. So we have to plan for that now so that we can address it in the future. And again, with our engineering standards allowing driveways only so many feet, they can have only so much access along the curb line. And if it's built as a single family home, not initially as adding the middle housing development, there may only be a single driveway, or if it's a duplex, there may be 2 driveways, and they may not be allowed to add additional driveways down the road. If they decide to do the stacked flat and add a unit on top of their house or 2 units on top of the house or what have you. So parking becomes an issue in our existing plus our new subdivisions that have yet to be built. Parking, we have to consider becoming an issue with more cars on the road. The access then to get to these structures in the back, we have to start planning for that now. If they're going to build another 1,000 square foot home in their backyard, how does the fire department get back there if they've already fenced off their property? So there'll be things in the middle housing code or zoning or what have you, however it's titled when it gets approved, that will allow us like a 10-foot wide access path to get back around the existing home to get to the back. But now I still may not be able to get my fire truck as close to the property as I want because of parking on the street. I have to lay more hose out, stretch more hose and longer lays in order to get to that backyard to be able to put water on the fire involving a structure back there. I have other items that'll come up. Hopefully there's not gates across the access ways or the proximity. We haven't done the setbacks yet for how close the structures can be to each other and what have you, but all those things are coming into play, and we're not going to treat the middle housing any differently than we would the single family. And hence, again, that's why I'm proposing this for 1 and 2 family, because all of these middle housing duplexes, single family homes, they're all going to be classified the same under the IRC as we adopt this middle housing ordinance. You're muted. There you go.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. That's super helpful. I think that covered my question. Mr. Chair, on with regards to pre-approval and the language you're showing on the WAC, the way that I read this is pre-approval is saying we approve this both for Airway Heights and for other jurisdictions. I think that's a separate question. And but I do appreciate the Deputy Chief coming here so we can provide some feedback on the language as Angela has done. But I think pre-approval is a different, separate decision for us. The way that I read 37. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Jay. I can't remember the last time we did this. We had, can someone advise us? And the last one I remember is when a county came forward with certain lumber grading, remember, and it came forward. Thank you. Am I not remembering correctly that when jurisdictions bring forward something for feedback before they would take it to their council for ordinance?
So
Where is that determined? Thank you.
I think it's all here within the same 030. If we pre-approval, then they adopt it, and if there's no changes, they just have to notify the council. If there are changes, it should come back to the council after they adopt it before it can be enforced appropriately.
Okay, I'm not seeing that in the highlight though. Am I missing it?
It's 018.
018. Oh, yes.
Preliminary review. Okay. I was citing the wrong one. Thank you, Jay, for pointing that out. So in this question, what is the action the council can take? Is it simply advisory at this point, or is there?
Well, if we approve of the language here today, I think the council could allow Airway Heights to adopt this as drafted, but it sounds like there's some intended movement in the language there. So if we're looking for amendments, we would need to bring this back to the council to approve further.
Seems like that's the deliverables comments. Yes.
Point of order.
Yes, please.
I don't think that preliminary review automatically grants approval. I think it's looking for advice or opinions, but you have to go to 5104-030 to get approval.
That's my memory also.
Yes.
So here in the form submitted, we have it checked for final adoption. So we don't have an adoption ordinance number here for the local jurisdiction, but I believe the ask from Airway Heights is to approve the language that's drafted here as a final approval for their final adoption at that local level.
I think the question here is, can we do that before it's adopted by ordinance, or it has to be done before it can be adopted by ordinance?
I think by my understanding and reading of these sections, it's a little ambiguous, but I've seen them come through to the council with the final ordinance resolution number attached to it. But I do believe that we are empowered to allow this adoption in the form drafted here before us today. But I don't know, I would I guess ask Dirk if he has a different opinion on what we're allowed to do with what we have before us today.
Yeah, here I'm tracking everybody. So at least I think I'm tracking. So there's to confuse things, there's 3 different categories of potential review, right? Thanks to Todd citing the wrong one. We were looking briefly at the pre-approval. I only said that because you're smiling, Todd. Yep. There's the preliminary review, which I believe Damon has correctly pointed out doesn't provide for the approval. It's just an opportunity for a local jurisdiction to petition for feedback and comments so that they could make changes potentially. And then there's the 3rd category, which is requesting approval of the local ordinance. Can we pull that one back up, the WAC?
Should be 030, I believe.
Yeah. So it's the amendments have to, so let's just walk through this so we're all on the same page. Subsection 1 requires that amendments to the building codes that apply to single and family at the local level, right, that apply to single and multifamily buildings must be submitted to the council for approval. The council shall consider and approve or deny all proposed local government residential amendments to the state building code as presented to the council within 90 calendar days of receipt of the proposal, unless there's some alternative scheduling. Where a proposed local government residential amendment is modified upon adoption by the city, it shall be resubmitted to the council. And local governmental residential amendment shall not be effective until approved by the council and the local governing council. Here, the council is referring to the State Building Code Council. If you could scroll down a little bit more. Sorry, all, I know that this is a little ponderous, but I just, again, want to make sure we're all tracking. All local government residential amendments to the building code that require council approval shall be submitted in writing to the council by the authorized local code or elected official prior to implementation and its enforcement. All local amendments submitted for review shall be accompanied by findings of fact justifying the adoption of the local amendment in accordance with the 5 criteria noted below. And then it establishes those 5. And if you scroll down a little bit more, appendices to the codes that affect single and family that are not adopted by council will be submitted to the council for consideration as local government residential amendments to the building code. And they otherwise have to conform to the limitations established in statute. So I thought I had seen something that said that it needed to identify the resolution or that it's specifically identifying the code, but I don't see anything in 030 that speaks to that. So unless I'm missing something, it appears that so long as it meets those criteria that we just described, that this is properly before the SBCC for approval.
RCW 19.27 requires that we review and approve. That's kind of, I think, may give more info.
Okay. Well, you're actually having us go to the statutes. The plot thickens. Yeah, I think you referenced this before, Angela.
Angela, do you have a specific section to jump to?
060. And in all honesty, I'm getting texts from Micah to sort of.
Oh, Mike. Okay. Sure you predict.
Did you say 068?
060.
Yeah, and if the reason I've stopped talking is because this is a long provision. So, and my apologies, I don't know this off the top of my head. These are actually pretty rare, so it's good that we're refamiliarizing ourselves with it.
Good practice for the WUI code. Well, while we're doing this, Tom or Angela, do you want to contribute anything or related to this?
Yeah, my question is just more of a curiosity. Do these types of provisions in a neighborhood require any upgrades to a city municipal water system to be able to handle the additional flow? Does it affect water rights or any of that type of thing as they go forward? And I know that's more of a city council concern than building council, but I just asked about it as a curiosity. You know, I mean, in the case of a wildfire and all of these things were going off at once, you know, you'd probably drain the pipes. But anyway.
I could speak to that if you'd like for Airway Heights.
Okay.
Because this was part of my research before bringing this forward, was what would it involve with meters and what have you for our city? How would we provide water to these individual ADUs and middle housing units constructed in the back? Our city policy for public works is that each single family residence would get its own meter. And so if they built a house in the back, 1,000 square foot home in the back, it would have a separate meter from the main residence existing on the property. If they decide to build the stacked flats, each of them would get a separate water meter, because if these can be sold as individual units down the road, individual properties, the city stance is they each get their own water meter now. They don't share. The sprinkler systems would be connected on the property side of the water meter, so they're not the city's, and there wouldn't be a separate shutoff valve in these systems. And that's more of my intent of having the protection. The water system in Airway, unfortunately, years ago, with the ground contamination from Fairchild Air Force Base, who's our next door neighbor, we were no longer able to use well water, but we purchase all of our water from the city of Spokane. And we have a very robust volume of water to meet the needs of the city. And the city does not grow right now with the water allocations that we allow each year for developers, we only allow them to build so many homes in a calendar year so that we don't exceed the water allocation we get from the city of Spokane. So we won't exceed the demand that the city of Spokane and the city of Airway Heights have agreed upon with expansion. So we do not have a wildland urban interface in our town. However, it is around us, and you never know, like Los Angeles, what might happen down the road. But as of today, we don't feel that we have any water issues.
One more quick follow-up, if I may. Are there any exempt wells in Airway Heights at residence locations?
Not at residential. We still have some on some commercial, but all residential are connected to the city's water mains.
And so, why don't you go ahead and then we'll come back to Derek on the.
I just had one more question on this. So this is not, this exempts existing structures that are adding new attached dwelling units, correct?
It exempts the existing structure, but not the new dwelling unit that they construct. Does that
Even
make
if
sense?
it's an attached, so that you go from a single family to a two family, because it's a single family with an attached ADU, you're exempting that existing structure? I'm just wondering if that is your intent, because to me, reading your exemption, that is what it does.
You're correct. Where it says if it's an addition or alteration made to the existing dwelling, then it doesn't require a sprinkler system be
Okay.
correct. Okay. That's the exception I want to move forward with.
Okay. Nope, that's fine. I was just clarifying.
Damon, let's go ahead.
Yeah, I'd actually really like to hear from Patrick and Micah. They've had their hands up for some time, and then I'll come back.
Okay, let's go to Derek first, and then we'll go to public comment.
Yeah, I'm interested in any dissenting view, but I don't see anything in the statute that would mandate that there has to be a resolution or ordinance number in the form, so long as the appropriate official is presenting the request to approve that's required under the statute. I think SBCC is authority to exercise that authority.
Okay, so Deputy Chief, in this case, then you are as marked looking for approval, so you can take it to your city council potentially.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Now let's go to public comment. Patrick first, please.
Yes, thank you. This is Patrick Hanks with the Building Industry Association of Washington. When I saw this proposal on the agenda yesterday, I sent it forward to our local association in Spokane, who had no idea that Airway Heights was even considering this. Apparently, Airway Heights has not been doing public meeting notices, providing agendas or minutes for 2025. So if this was discussed at all with the city council, they had no idea. They called and talked to some folks at the city, and their members and builders didn't know about this being considered. General public didn't know about this being considered. I worry that if the council votes to accept this outright today, it would kind of preempt a full public process at the local level for reviewing that. It would make it seem that that they haven't gone through that. So we would hope that the council would send this back to the proponent with any technical code feedback that you've already discussed, so that the city council can discuss this and listen to local stakeholders and members of the public. BIW is very supportive of life and fire safety protections. Measures in and outside of the code other than fire sprinklers have been able to greatly improve fire prevention and mitigation in residential structures that are cost effective and do not negatively impact housing affordability and attainability. And I'm a little confused as to, when I read through this, it seemed like this was looking for outright approval of it. And the form does ask for an ordinance number, resolution number. but it seems there's some different routes in the WACs and the statute for that. But we would hope that you provide your technical feedback, give it back to the proponents so that the city council can engage in a proper public process and allow stakeholders in the public in Airway Heights to review this and provide their feedback before the city council makes a decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Ty, I see your hand up. Did you want to respond to anything Patrick said, or would you like me to take more comment?
You could go to Micah and then I can.
Okay.
I'll keep my hand up.
Okay, thank you. Micah, go ahead, please.
Thanks, folks. And I want to thank the chief for bringing this forward to us early. I'm going to disagree with Patrick on this and others about the form. I think this is the proper path for Airway Heights. Is they want to get approval of that code language to the residential code prior to taking that forward to their council. If it did get modified at the council or through their own public process, then they would probably need to bring that back to us for further approval. Not us, the SBCC. I'm no longer a member, previously was. Can we just show the code change proposal on the screen? And to go back to the RCW real quick, it was RCW 27060 that points, I think it's 1A or B, that then points you to RCW 1927074. This is the correct process. And then if we can just pull the entire proposal up on the screen, I do have some feedback on that hopefully will be beneficial for the chief. First off, again, I want to appreciate you bringing this forward. Section R 313.1, if you can scroll up to that, Dustin, and your title chapter there. If you are adopting Appendix AWV, you do not need approval from the SBCC to adopt that, which would allow you to automatically require sprinklers in 1 to 2 family dwellings. Again, that was already an appendix that's adopted by the state that allows jurisdictions to do that without further approval. I do have some concerns with your further modifications in R 313.2. I'm going to disagree that the middle housing is a done deal that's going to be in the residential code. The legislation that was passed directs the council to adopt rules that will allow them to be constructed out of the residential code. However, there's nothing in there that requires all the allowances of the residential code to be provided for those middle housing structures. So we don't know through rulemaking yet if a 13D or a P2904 system is going to be allowed in that fourplex or other middle housing units. That's yet to be determined. I think I saw Dave Codecott on here. Maybe you can give us more information on sprinkler requirements. But some concerns I do have further down in your R 313.2.1, when we get into the modifications you've made there, P2904 systems, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, are wet systems. You are striking language that allows exceptions for you to not require those sprinklers in unconditioned space. In other words, it shows garages, carports. My interpretation of that is you now are going to require sprinklers to be provided in those unconditioned or unheated spaces. A wet system, and my understanding is Airway Heights gets pretty cold. We've heard that from Mr. Andrews on the concerns about heat pumps on that area. And I think that you would have a problem with freezing there if you strike that language and then require those sprinklers in those locations. So I have some concerns with your language. I think that originally, like I said, your 313.1, you're allowed to do without our approval. And I appreciate you bringing this forward. The form is just a form. You're in the right spot at the right time. Thank you.
Thank you, Micah. I do see one more public comment on iPhone. I don't know who that is. So if you're on an iPhone, would like to address go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. This is hey Todd, this is Isaiah Payne with the Spokane Home Builders Association. Apologize, I couldn't figure out changing the name through the iPhone app that I'm on now, but Appreciate you allowing me to speak. Our request, as you heard from Patrick echoing some of what he said, our request for the co-counsel to defer on this item. That's a conversation that we've had with the city, and we're under the impression that that's what was going to be presented. So a little caught off guard that we're still talking about it today, but happy to engage. As a previous commenter, just said, if changes happen, it would have to come back to this body anyway. And so, our request would be that the council make a statement that we desire public input, we desire community input prior to it coming to this stage, especially if it's going to have to come here again anyways, as is likely, as has been pointed out. And so the council has ability today to set forth that recommendation, to reinforce what's been normative, that we engage in a public process first. I mean, ultimately, this item might not even come to you. So myself and you all are spending time on this today on an item that may or may not even come to fruition. So we don't think it's a wise use of council time to further incentivize or further promote the use of this ordination of the process. We think it's not something that should be encouraged by this body. We're in the midst of a housing crisis, and these sorts of measures that dramatically increase the cost of a home, we would hope that we'd be able to have a discussion with the community before there's a directive, from on high and from the state that maybe overpowers or becomes some, talking point used to say, well, the state's already decided on this. Well, that's not actually the case, and we all agree that that's not how the process works. And so, again, there's a procedural opportunity for the council to say, hey, we desire public input first. We desire finality to the proposal. I would submit to you that's why, that item 4 is asked for, because there is that expectation. I understand that there's an allowance for it to not go that way, but that really is, in our view, in our opinion, and hope that you would share it, the proper way for this to go, that we desire public input, a final ordinance, an actual item for you all to consider on it, instead of something that is, as it was pointed out, is likely to change. So appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Isaiah. Let's go to Dave Kokut, please.
Thank you. Dave Kokut, Spokane Fire Department, Washington State Association of Fire Marshals. I don't want to address the previous comments at all at this point, because I just want to remind the council that the reason this ordinance is being brought forth is the resources of a jurisdiction are strained enough that they have to consider this. Airway Heights has been growing hand and fist. It's the amount of growth there is just phenomenal. We've had to actually add a temporary fire station to help support Airway Heights with our mutual aid agreement. This is for the benefit for the citizens of that jurisdiction. The council needs to keep that in mind and consider this as the exception to the general rule. That's why it's looking at it as an amendment. We support it.
Okay, thank you, Dave. I've got council hands stacking up, but Micah, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, I just wanted to, since Dave was on, Dave, do you have any comment on the issue or concerns about requiring those wet sprinkler systems in unconditioned or uneven space?
I think that yes, we would have some concerns with this, but this proposal is put together by the local jurisdiction, so it's up to them, and they may end up changing that. It's very possible with the discussion that's here, if that's something that the city would like to look at, but they may have been looking at some potential concerns of if we do have some other certain circumstances. I'd like to leave it to the local jurisdiction to make their determination of how they best want to handle it.
And I guess my other question on that, or just on this proposal, is the serious concern of there's no rulemaking around the middle housing completed yet. And I think this would be very precedent setting for the council to approve this and approve 13D or B29.4 systems in those units that previously may have been required a 13R or 13 system from the building code. There's those fourplexes and triplexes, if they're not built as a townhouse, would be built out of the building code. And then something I forgot to point out a moment ago, yes, I was texting Angela. It was just the RCW number. It wasn't about swaying any type of votes. Point that out. Yeah, I'm like, oh, that didn't come out probably right. So, thinking I'm texting her, but I was at lunch with my wife. So I appreciate listening. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Micah.
Who's pulling the strings?
Yep, that's right. Okay, back to the council. Angela, please.
Yeah, sorry. No, his texts were simply informational on RCW sections that he's way more familiar with. But for mine, I really disagree with the public comments about this not being an appropriate use of the council's time. I think this is exactly what we should be doing with something like this. This isn't the most simple sprinkler proposal that's out there. I mean, like our jurisdictions, our fire department, it's actually in the fire code that requires sprinklers in all structures based on certain criteria. But I think that us discussing this is exactly what needs to happen. And then, yes, they can take our comments if they feel and put them in this and take it to the council, which then at that point, yes, they're required to go through the proper public process, but they might as well have a vetted proposal to take forward instead of, you know, something that they get passed and then we come back and rip it apart. I mean, yeah, it could take a couple back and forths with us to, you know, between their council changes and things, but that's the process. And then as far as, you know, the expense this is adding and everything like that, I mean, the price of residential sprinkler systems that are per P 2904.1.1, I mean, those are part of the plumbing system of a house, basically. And basically the state has specifically allowed for individual jurisdictions to adopt sprinkler provisions because different jurisdictions and areas have different needs and resources. And this is a great example of them taking into account what they can and can't do, how their resources are being stretched, mostly based on legislative changes requiring ADUs and things like that. So I don't think it's appropriate to, you know, say that they're doing a bad thing. I think them making judgment calls for their own locality is completely appropriate. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Angela. Ty, please.
Okay, well, Angela just covered about 75% of what I was gonna say. But I do have one last thing on my list, which is the other cities that were referenced that have this rule, should I assume they went through this process and got building code council authority to do what they did?
Yes, I would have to research to see what all is out there as far as approved ordinances, but also pointed out as the adoption of the appendix AWV that wouldn't have required council input.
Okay, well, I guess I just wanted to know in terms of at a high level and philosophically, why would we not work with them to try to get them what they want to do for their local community? It seems like a policy question about housing affordability. Stuff like Micah says seems on point, like making sure the language covers the technical points that will make the code sound, but at that higher level, I don't see it as my role or the council's role to weigh in on what the local community thinks it needs to do, and especially when there's other communities that are doing it and have been approved to do it.
Thank you, Ty. Jay, please.
Thank you, Angela. Ty covered what I wanted to say on the merits of this. From a process standpoint, it sounds like both Angela and Micah have some valid concerns. So it looks to me like the particular proposal here that Airway Heights is making is going to need to change. So I'm not ready to take any action on this today. I do appreciate, Deputy Chief, you bringing this today so that you can take this feedback and have a more well-formed proposal for the Airway Heights City Council to consider. I think this process is working as it should be, and we look forward to, I would say, I would recommend that we look forward to taking action in the future once we see something adopted, if we see something adopted. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Chell.
Yeah, I have a question, and I guess maybe it's been answered, but I haven't heard the answer yet, which is if what Micah said is there's an appendix that does largely this same thing, why is Airway Heights pursuing this more custom thing, code change? And that's, I guess, for Mr. Michaela.
So I was not aware that the AWV allowed for adoption of this of some sprinkler stuff without going through the council's approval. So that's something that's new to me, and I'd have to do some more research into that.
Okay, thank you. And I guess I'm with Jay that if more research is done on this, maybe AWZ can be, can be done without us, and then we don't have to have a patchwork of custom sprinkler regulations across Washington, which I think would be beneficial. So I look forward to seeing this again another time, or if the city council's decision is to adopt AWZ, that is fine as well. Thank you.
Todd, do you mind if I jump in? I see, I'm not trying to step on your toes.
No,
Dave.
please.
It's been up for a while. I just want to make sure that we're tracking the WAC, because I hear some conversation here, and I know some of the public was urging a deferral. I just want to make sure we're tracking that WAC 5104030 subsection 2 requires that the council must consider and approve or deny all proposed local government residential amendments to the state building code as presented to the council within 90 calendar days of receipt of the proposal, unless an alternative scheduling is agreed to by the council and the proposing entity. So, read strictly, I would submit that requires action be taken to either within that 90-day period to either deny or approve. And there doesn't seem to be a third route of saying, hey, we're going to put this off, unless, of course, it's within that 90-day submission period. This is all assuming that the proponent wants a decision to be made within that 90-day submission period.
And where are we with regards to the 90 days?
That I don't know.
We're well within that time period. It's been talked about in the previous 2 weeks, but we received this proposal pretty recently. I'd have to double check the email specifically, but we have time to bring it back to the next meeting and likely the meeting after that.
Okay, then my preference would be to talk about it at the next meeting. And then if Mr. Michaela would prefer an alternate route, then we could, agree on that, or an alternate time frame. We could agree on that, or reconsider this language if that's the preferred route for Airway Heights.
Okay, Damon, let's go to you first, and we'll go back to Micah and Jim online.
Okay, well, I'm glad that Derek had an opportunity to weigh in. I was going to make a motion to table, but since we have to take a stance one way or the other, I've got a lot to say on this issue. It's something that I've been debating since 2003 at the statewide level. I'm going to go ahead and move to disapprove the proposal as presented.
Damon, so absolutely, that's your right to do that. Do you want to hear from Mike or Jim first on that before we get into a motion?
If you'll save my spot in line, you bet.
I will absolutely save that thought there. Thank you. Micah, go ahead, because I think you're maybe interested in talking about AWV.
Yes, I am. I definitely think that this could come back with certain changes. The AWV item, again, if it's just straight adoption of sprinkler systems to apply to 1 and 2 family dwellings, they don't need our approval for that. However, I think to answer Chael's question, why they need approval with what they're looking at right now is, my opinion is that they're modifying or providing the allowance of that 13D or 2904 system to be in middle housing, which again, we have not gone through rulemaking on yet. And on top of that, they're modifying 2904.1.1 by doing strike through, which would be a change to what the SBCC has adopted for, I believe that's a different appendix that we've adopted for 2904 modification. So that's why it needs to come here. If Airway Heights does decide just to adopt sprinklers for 1 and 2 family dwellings, and then down the road, if they interpret that to apply to the middle housing based on which we go through, they would have to bring this back. But if they're modifying any of those sections, they do need to bring it here for approval. And I just wanted to thank the chief again for bringing this forward. I'd be happy to help work on some of the technical language if you want to reach out. In fact, I'd be thrilled to assist within that 90-day timeline, because I know these things are time of essence items. So thank you.
Hey, Micah, just to make sure you're throwing some inside baseball there. So you're referring to the legislatively mandated multiplex bill that tag is a single exit, and multiplex is going to begin their work in group 2. I think that's what you're referring to. And then my comment or question on that is, even if this local went through, it would be preempted if there's something more more stringent in that work that would be done, that would be adopted by the council. But my question on AWV for you or anyone is, it says fire sprinklers, an approved automatic fire sprinkler system shall be installed in new 1 family and 2 family dwellings and townhomes in accordance with this appendix, or appendix AWU. They're specifically asking for a 13D. Is there something we need to know about which system this refers to, or does AWU address all of that?
I think there's a different appendix that addresses the 13D and P2904, which I believe are mostly interchangeable. We did specifically adopt the P2904 because that is a I code item, and not an NFPA item. And again, there's fire folks, and Chief may know more than me on that, but again, I think there's some specific appendix Cs that control this outside of the amendments that they're proposing.
Okay.
And yes, you are correct. I was doing the kind of insider info on the upcoming middle housing tag. It was directed by the legislation, but those items have not been adopted yet as rules. The preemptive stuff, I don't know how that would look down the road. I would assume that Airway Heights would rather have something that is consistent and stable through their process instead of having to come back in a year and possibly change that.
Okay, thank you for that.
Todd, can I jump back in for a second? I don't want to derail the really good conversation here. I just want to make sure for Damon that I was clear about what I was trying to say before, which is that you had indicated that you were going to propose to maybe table it, but we're now shifting into, and obviously make whatever motion you want to make. In my opinion, it would be timely, from what Dustin indicated, to table this request now and bring it up at another meeting, because that would be within the 90 days approval period that the WAC sets forth, but obviously up to the council whether they want to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, Damon, one more. Jim, go ahead, please.
Thanks. I was involved in Olympia's proposal, which I think was the first approved local fire sprinkler ordinance. Ours was a little bit different than others because a group of us had asked the city to adopt narrower street standards, which would allow more houses and reduce the cost of building per unit, which the builders liked, but the fire department didn't like it. And the compromise was the builders got a savings on the cost per lot, and the fire department got sprinklers, which reduced the need for fast response times. And there was it was a package. These kinds of amendments are inherently local in nature, and I just don't envy you guys having to work through them. Good luck.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, Damon, back to you. Angela and Katie have their hands up, but I'll defer to you.
Boy, my recollection of the city of Olympia debate was much different than Jim's. I'm going to keep this simple and simply move to table indefinitely.
I'll second, but with a point of order, I think a table has to be addressed at the following meeting or it dies under Robert's rules, as I understand it.
Move to table is undebatable. It only takes a majority vote. And I don't believe, well, defer to Derek, that it automatically comes back up. Not to say the issue couldn't be brought up in a different way at a different time.
Okay, so
Don't we
Tom,
have to address it within 90 days? Don't we have to approve or deny?
Eric?
You have me scrambling here. Is this a Robert's Rules question or a statute or question of the WAC?
The first part is,
The WAC, well, let me go talk about the WAC real quick. The WAC requires that you have to approve or deny within the 90 days. So, I mean, I guess I would submit that tabling until after 90 days wouldn't be consistent with what the expectations are under council's rules. As far as the specific Robert's Rules requirement, or if there is a requirement regarding whether a tabled item needs to come up at the next meeting, I don't know if that's, I can't recall off the top of my head. I'd have to look into that. And I can frantically do that if you'd like.
Yeah, well,
I'm
ahead,
sorry,
Tom.
I've looked at it real recently, and that is the case, that it needs to be removed from the table at the next meeting. Otherwise it dies. Not to say that we can't bring it up for a minute at the next meeting and retable it. But according to Robert's rules, that's the way I'm pretty sure it goes.
Okay, so
But I'd still second to table
okay,
it.
so I think what you're doing, Damon, here is you're putting me on the spot here. So instead of postpone to a certain time, you're moving to table, which in my understanding will stop debate is a discussion. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. So let's take a vote on that. So it's been moved and seconded to move to table. I'm sorry.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Joe, please.
We agreed that the next meeting would be about a hearing for the site versus source. So I just want to clarify if the 90-day window, if we didn't cover this at the next meeting, if we'd still be within 90-day window for 2 meetings from now, which is when I would understand this would be then brought up.
Or we'd have to call a special meeting if it came to that.
Yeah. I'd like to know that before I motion to table, or I guess we could consider that at the next meeting, we could have this come up for discussion along with the site versus source.
Well,
Joe, the date on this thing that was signed was 2/5, so 90 days would then be May 5th, and we have a March and an April meeting on the agenda.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that, Damon. That helps.
And it was received by council staff on the 11th, so a couple more days.
Okay, I'm trying to hold to Robert's rules here. It's been moved and seconded to table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, let's take a quick roll call, please.
Jay Arnold,
Aye.
Shell Anderson,
Yes.
Justin Barbeau,
Aye.
Damon Doyle,
Aye.
Tom Handy,
Aye.
Angela Hopp,
Aye.
Roger Haringa. I'm sorry, he's not here. Ty Menser,
No.
Ben O'Mara,
Yes.
Pete Reekey.
Aye.
Oh, Pete's here. Thank you.
Aye.
Kate. Okay. And Dan Young.
No.
That's 9-2.
Okay, thank you. So with that vote, then this item is tabled, but to give constructive feedback, I think this buys us time, Deputy Chief, to take the feedback from the council today, and we will do our best to reintroduce this at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing this forward. Okay, we learned something today. Thank you. We're going to move on to the next agenda item. We have 45 minutes left in our scheduled time. I believe we're on to the standing committee reports. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let's start with, well, the legislative committee. I think it's first on the list anyway.
Ready?
Yeah, Dustin, do you want to go ahead and give it?
Yeah, I was gonna bring up our legislative tracking sheet, which is posted online for this meeting. Give me 2 seconds to populate that. Clear out some of the stuff over here.
And just watching our time here, I think we're fine, but we want to make sure we leave a good 20, 30 minutes. Let's say we're shooting for 15 minutes on this topic.
Yep. So, quick introduction on this one. To date, for this legislative session, the council has not taken any official stance on any of the bills. So any testimony has been presented as other and neutral. Outside of the Wildland Urban Interface Bill, HB 1254. Initially, I provided some testimony in support of the bill. The original version of this bill removed some of the technical language that we testified against in the 2024 legislative session. And since that language was removed, is the reason we testified in support of this bill. There has been some modifications to this one, giving us a date certain of November 1, 2029 to implement a wildland urban interface code in conjunction with the statewide mapping, which is projected to be finished out at the end of this year, which would be too late to include in the 2024 codes. Also in the amended bill, there is a provision that would allow the council to produce a optional WUI code to start addressing building hardening and defensible space considerations. Also address portions of the model code that are controlled by other statute within Washington, specifically fire apparatus access and water supplies. So in the 2021 version of this code, those specific sections were amended out and labeled as not adopted. And so we are, I think we're looking that this bill is going to be good for the process within SBCC, and it's at our discretion whether or not a full process for the 2024 optional code has to occur. But I think it would be good to get ahead of some of the concerns that have been raised on previous versions of the WUI code adopted by SBCC. Next, we have the embodied carbon bill, or I guess before I move too much further, anything highlighted yellow are the bills I intend to address here today. Gray highlight are bills of interest, but are not hugely impactful to our process. And then the rest that are not highlighted aren't impactful to us as far as rulemaking and things like that go. So some of our code users might see some impact as a result of some of these other bills, but I'm not planning on talking about those today. So for the embodied carbon bill, HB 1458, the original bill had a direction for SBCC to convene a tag with specified tag seats. In the most recent version of this bill, that requirement has been removed and replaced by a requirement to convene a group with that is located within the Department of Commerce arena. And so we're looking to have some outreach on this one to make sure that that is the clarified intent of this bill, is to work with a technical work group housed within the Department of Commerce, or to continue work as per the testimony Chell delivered with the International Building Code tag that has already been conducting some work in this subject matter. Other changes in this bill with the substitute are really just clarification language in there. And I don't have a whole lot more on embodied carbon. It is a lot of work for us to do, but we're kind of anticipating that with the budget proviso language that required us to do the study on embodied carbon. And so we're moving forward with that one, and there's additional consideration with a proposal in the International Building Code proposed to be continued here as we move forward through the process. These last three down here are probably the ones of more concern to the council at the moment. We have Senate Bill 5429, which concerns the membership of the council. It's going to add 6 additional seats and kind of redefine who can be in certain seats. It'll remove the requirement for 6 members to be from the eastern side of the state, but more clarifies members should be from certain size jurisdictions. And before we open up for comment on any of these, I'll wrap up some of the other ones here. So we got Senate Bill 5552, which concerns kit homes and the building codes. This one was of high import. We have had some outreach with the sponsor on this one to clarify the intent there, and we're continuing the outreach to inform on possibilities for provisions for kit homes within the building code. So there's just some concern on that one. And then the last one, Senate Bill 5747, is an affordable housing exemption. This one seeks to make multiple versions of the code available for low-income housing projects. And as far as the main concern for this is an administrative issue for the Building Code Council to maintain all of those codes in an available manner within the WAC. So currently, as we adopt new codes, WAC language is overwritten. It doesn't mean a amendment from a previous version isn't still there, but as it evolves and is brought forward into the current codes, older WAC goes away. And so in order to have a snapshot picture of the older versions of the code, WAC will have to be reorganized, and a fair amount of research will need to be done to bring back those snapshot pictures of the code as it existed in 4 different iterations across time. And so with that, that's my quick overview of what we have going on here, and I would turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. And I think it's important to note that those two, well, Senate Bill 5429 and Senate Bill 5747, I don't believe we're scheduled for executive session today. So effectively, they're not going to make it past the cutoff unless they're brought back as a fiscal bill. So those we can probably mark as dead for this session. 5552 did go through, and my understanding the planning related one, 5249, I think did pass through today. The amendment was adopted, but I assume that meant that the citing was. And the citing one is interesting because it brings 5-year inspection into play. So maybe not directly in the purview of this, but those two are proposing something between 0 and 800 square feet for structures for housing. So, okay, anyone on the council have any comments? We talked length yesterday in the legislative committee about this. Go ahead, Damon.
Just curious if the chair of the committee has any comments.
I would be respectful. Thank you. Go, Tom.
No, I was actually going to say the same things you did, Todd, about the status of some of these things too. So, yeah, until the end of today, I mean, it does look like a few of those aren't going anywhere. So we'll know for sure in a couple hours.
Okay. Anything else from the council? We do have public comment flagged here if anyone would like to make a comment before we move on to the next committee. Okay, if not, thank you for that, Dustin. Next item is the BFRW committee. I don't believe Roger is here. Maybe I can give a quick summary. So per our last meeting, the major item we addressed last Friday, I believe, was that the council referred back the group 1 packages relevant to that committee. And so as directed, we went through and flagged the ones that were either requested or needed additional public comment. So we'll begin that process in that committee. Secondly, of course, it also directed the work group for economic impact to begin their work on those. So the discussion was related to which ones needed that accelerated to help make a decision on the petitions that were moved forward. And then finally, during that meeting or during the executive committee meeting, we took action to formally form the Code Correlation Committee. I guess it was an executive committee on Tuesday, probably. So we do now have a special committee called the Code Correlation Committee with co-chairs from both Damon and Roger, the 2 standing committee chairs, if that makes sense. And then the members of the chairs of the take. And then those will be very open meetings. It was agreed upon to bring in subject matter experts and TAG members and so forth as relevant, but the voting members are the TAG chairs. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'd add one more thing to that one. We did a review of our standing committees memberships, and we recently were notified that one of our council members had passed on February 7th. So Greg Bowles is no longer with us, and I would like to express condolences to his family. As part of that discussion of the review of this standing committees, there's a couple slots that were identified as having potential issues. But the motion made, or the action decided on there, was that the full review of these will continue and be completed after we get confirmation from the governor's office on council appointments for expiring terms this year.
Yes, Dustin, first of all, thank you for the acknowledgement for Craig. That was very important that we raised that today. And then secondly, yes, we've kind of rolled into the discussion on the executive committee report here. So that was at the executive committee that we just, no, that's perfect. I did the same. So that was discussed at the executive committee. And just to clarify what that means is we want to make sure when we have reappointments or new appointments by the governor, which we anticipate very shortly, we'll address that. And I assume we can do that by the next council meeting. So nothing else comes to memory unless any council members want to fill any gaps. Okay. With that, we'll close agenda item 7 on the standing committee reports and move into agenda item 8, which is I-2066 website statement. And Dustin, I believe you've posted a draft statement for us to discuss here. We'll try to do this efficiently, but we intend to discuss this and take public comment on this today. Again, if you remember, if you're following from previous council meetings, this is our intent to post something on the website so that it's both we are calling this a statement because this wants to be debated by the council and try to be very transparent about the process we're going through on I-2066, but also make sure that for local jurisdictions that we have a firm statement that the opinion of the council. So I'll start with Angela, please.
Yeah, thanks. So I have a question as far as the motion that we took back at the November 22nd meeting. During that, did we move that we would move into rulemaking, open rulemaking for the 2021 codes? Did we have to do that? I wasn't sure if we could can we make changes to the 21 codes without entering?
Krista, if I remember correctly, does this mean we did move forward on a CR 101 that was requirement, but I'll defer to Krista.
We did file a CR 101 at that time, yes.
And so I guess my question with that, so I was looking at the recorder's office site, is that what it is? And on December 6th, I saw that we filed to open rulemaking for the 24 commercial and residential energy codes, which I thought we already did that with because the 24s are already in process. So I wasn't sure if those two things were supposed to be for the 21. Am I wrong?
Well, let me get back to the motion that was made at that meeting. Give me one moment.
Because it was, what was filed was a subject to possible rulemaking for the 24 Washington State energy codes, and it's referencing considering changes to address the new language from I-2066. And I just was a little confused why that was referencing the 24 codes and not the 21, if that's what we were going to be changing. And I think, this all stems back to in the statement. I think we should be referencing something about the steps we are taking as far as that we have entered rulemaking for the 26 code, that we are accepting proposals, and that it is being referred back to the tag. So that's kind of where this question was going to, in a sort of convoluted way.
Katie or Chell, do you want to respond to that, or I'll do my best?
I was listening, but I guess I don't
Okay.
have a response. My understanding of the motion is that we did suggest that there might be that I think the word "if needed" is critical in here, and that's kind of halfway down the page. That to update the 2021 energy codes if needed, so as to do the following things. And then we opened up a window to accept proposals for the 2021 codes very recently, or somewhat recently. So yeah, that's why I think why the statement is up there, but I like your idea of maybe adding a little bit of text to the statement, saying what we are in fact doing.
Krista, I saw you. Go ahead, Angela.
Sorry, have we opened rulemaking? I guess this is my first time doing something like this, like opening a code and stuff. Do we need to open rulemaking in order to take those proposals and think about implementing them on a code that's already been implemented? That's my question.
Can I jump in?
I was just going to call on you if you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Tell us about Sierra 101, please.
Yeah. So the short answer to your question is yes, Angela. Here's the longer version. In order to make changes to the codes are, as we all know, adopted through the rulemaking process. They're rules and subject to all the requirements under the APA. So we're going to make any changes to those, the current codes or future, or whether it's the 2021 codes or some future code, that would need to be done through the rulemaking process. And as we all know too, the way that we initiate that rulemaking process is through filing a CR 101. 2 CR 101s are pre-proposal inquiry of rulemaking is the form. And you were referring before, Angela, to the code revisor's office, which is where you're going to find information regarding the published notices. That form, the CR 101, 2 forms were filed in December with the eye towards changing the codes. And again, I want to be very clear here, and I think maybe to Chell's point, filing a CR 101 doesn't commit an agency to ultimately adopt rules. It's just a formal notice to the world that it's considering doing rules. And to that end, in December of last year, 2 CR 101s were filed that said you're considering rulemaking. Now, a little confusingly, the subject of that rulemaking in those forms was it said the 2024 codes, and I think maybe that's what you're referring to, Angela. And I think, and I could be wrong, Krista can correct me, that was addressed, at least with respect to the commercial codes at the last meeting, with the direction to file a CR 101 specifically with respect to the possible changes to the 2021 codes. And at least that's my memory. And that, I think that's all I know about that. Oh, has the CR 101 actually been filed yet? That's a Krista question. I should note that there's sometimes a delay. An agency will file something, but it doesn't get published in the Washington State Register until the next publication date. So filing something doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to appear on the public website until that publication happens. Now, I feel really good about what I just said. I think it was clear and hopefully helpful, but if anybody has any questions, please let me know.
Does that help, Angela? Because I think what our intent was and what we've done is we've said the 2024 codes move forward in their process. We try to create a very deliberate, specific pathway to open up for 2021 considerations.
Right, and that's why I was confused because the two filings that are noted as being filed in December both reference only the 24 codes, which I thought were already open for rulemaking and wouldn't have needed a new filing. But so I wasn't sure because there's nothing since December that references anything being filed for the 21 energy codes. So that's where I was confused. Thanks.
Krista, is that something you can help us with, or?
I'm pretty sure that the 2024 was an error and it should have been 2021. And the council did direct us at that last meeting to direct new or to file new CR 101s. And I don't know if that's been done yet. We'd have to check internally.
Yeah, we haven't had the chance to do those filings just yet. No.
Okay. And by the way, that all makes sense to me because this was following the election. The council wanted to make sure that all its ducks in the row move forward with the form. It doesn't surprise me that there might have been a Scrivener's error on the form itself and said 2024 instead of 2021. It's led to some confusion, but I think the purpose of the last meeting was to get this back on track to say, okay, if there is going to be any changes that the CR 101 is providing notice about, it would be to the 2021 codes. And again, not guaranteeing that there are going to be changes, but that you're considering.
Thank you, Angela, for raising that. Okay, Katie.
Yeah, thank you. Did in terms of the statement itself, did this get written by the executive committee or was it a staff draft, or how did this come up to us?
So the statement work was something we talked about at the executive committee to bring to the full council to make sure that it's supported properly before posting. As far as the draft you see before you, it is something that Chell sent over as an option for this. And since I haven't had any other input from other council members on what to put into this statement, as far as draft work, this is what I'm bringing forward to start with for today's conversation.
Great, thank you. I'm just trying to figure out the process a little bit. So I really appreciate the start. And my first question upon reading it was like, I understand why we're trying to keep things like as simple as possible, but I really like the motion here. And so if there's a link to this motion on this statement, that because this is pretty clear, it lists the reasons why we've made some of these like why other conflicting laws and some of the complications that we're addressing. And so, you know, I get why we want to keep it simple on the website, but having some kind of link to either the meeting notes or this document itself might go a long ways to sort of outlining our process that we were talking about, or that we were talking about earlier. So that was my suggestion and or comment. Thanks.
Yeah, Katie, and just if I may jump in, at our last meeting or full council meeting, we talked about the need for a draft, which we're working on today, but also just a section on the website. It was a public comment that, can you please have a section with some of the more direct links, even to the 2020, people can find it on there, but it would just be in one place where certain actions are taken related to I-2066. Okay, Chell.
Yeah, and I had sent Dustin one small modification of this, which uses the words "if needed" directly from the motion made in November in there. So there should be an email, but I can also read it off. It would be the third sentence would be, the council and is investigating. The council is investigating any changes necessary, if needed, to bring the codes into compliance with I-2066 and other relevant laws. Any changes necessary, comma, if needed, comma. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, that's my suggestion. for the web statement. But I also kind of agreed with earlier statements that we could have links or more information there. But I would, I think we could approve this today and empower staff to put any additional links on there, so we don't have to wordsmith the links and that's that kind of things today. So I guess I'll make a motion that we have this as our website statement, what's seen on the screen, slightly modified from what we had. And to go along with that we empower staff to put any other links to relevant information on the website to support this type of statement.
So Chell, we can go into a motion if there's a second here, or we can also entertain public comment, but I'm willing to do it within the motion if you'd like, but we have it listed on our agenda.
Okay, yeah, I want to hear public comment as well, but I'd like, yes, we can take public comment within a motion is my understanding.
We can.
Okay.
I'm trying to change that practice, but we can.
Okay, I mean,
I'm going to lose that battle. It's okay. It's okay.
My understanding generally of Robert's rules is that you can't really do much until somebody makes a motion. So that's what I was making the motion, but
that's fine.
I'll second it.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Okay, so we're technically in deliberation, but go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, and I appreciate the comments that Katie made and Angela made previously, and instead of making any more details in the draft, I like the idea of linking to that original motion and linking to the pages, the relevant pages that talk about where we are in the 2021 and 2024 update process. And I think that will help clarify things a bunch.
Thank you, Jay. Angela.
Yeah, so I like the general simplicity of this statement for now. Obviously, it should kind of be a living document as things change and progress. And I have seen a draft of another proposal that's much more longer and asks for a lot more things and much more opinion, I'd say, from the council. And I would personally like to stay away from that, as well as linking to anything there's been requests for linking to, litigation documents and things like that. And I guess I would like to see us stay away from that also. But I think linking to the motion and anything, that can be helpful. And I guess, again, expanding on this a little bit to state that we have opened a proposal window for these items, what that proposal window is, a link to whatever page they need to go to for that. But then I like where it's at in basically right now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Angela. Tom?
Yeah, I agree with that. And also maybe add a link to the recording of the meeting, so that if people really wanted to drill down, they wouldn't have to try and find it somewhere. I was kind of curious also where this might live. Is it going to be something that's prominent on the homepage, or what's the story there?
So at the initial envisioning of where this would go in the announcements section, but that is probably not the best place for all of the information. There's been talk of a I-2066 page where we could have the short, concise statement that we are deliberating here today on our announcements page, and within that have the links to a separate page where we maybe have more robust information included there.
Okay. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with most of the council here, and I think the statement we see is appropriate. I don't know if it was stated, but I was trying to find when the motion was made. It was at the November 22nd special council meeting, if anyone's curious. And on that page, it does have a link to the motion text that we were seeing previously. So, and I think based on what Tom had mentioned earlier, I don't think the minutes for that meeting have been published yet, is my understanding. Officially.
So there was some revision to those. So there's a draft of those published for the January 24th meeting. There was some changes identified at that meeting, and we're working to get that draft back out before the council to be final approved before it's posted on the November 22nd meeting.
Understood. Thanks.
Angela, please.
Yeah, I would like to just voice that this does, at least this statement needs to be placed prominently on the homepage and stay, kind of at the top until all of this is sort of sorted out, just so that nobody has to dig for information and things like that. So yeah, that would just be my preference is, yeah, at least the condensed version needs to be on the homepage. Thanks.
Thank you, Angela. Ty?
Thanks. I would just say that if we end up with a more robust page, as Dustin's put it, on 2066, and we're trying to flesh this out a little bit more for the public, and we're talking about this being a living document, I would not be opposed to having stuff related to litigation there. I agree with Angela that we shouldn't have opinion necessarily, but what's going on with the litigations is fact. It's not council opinion. So if we're going to have this more, the statement could be concise, but if we're going to link to another page and we're adding lots of other context, I think some of the developments in litigation would be, and we're going to be updating that as a living document, which has been proposed, then I would say the litigation pieces would be relevant, would be my opinion. Helping the public just to kind of help them understand and follow. If we're going to try to create a clearinghouse where they can track this issue, which is kind of what everybody's comments are getting toward, then that's obviously central to what's going on.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Thank you. And I would add to that, well, the council hasn't determined moving into 2021 rulemaking yet. There's a process in place to collect a window right now to collect petitions, and then part of the 2024 process is also to flag relevant petitions that might be put in this. So I think that can be a holding pen at sometime in the near future with links on there that where all those petitions can be easily found. Okay, let's move to public comment. I see 2 hands. So Jim Lazar, please.
Thanks. I think you're on a good track, and I actually like the suggestion that Dustin made that you have an I-2066 page that's findable from the homepage with a simple statement, and the one you have is a good simple statement, but then also with a link to another page with detail that would be augmented over time. I did submit, and I hope that you all received the alternative language that I proposed, which basically would combine both of those pages, and I don't have a problem at all of separating them out. I do want to speak to one piece of this in particular, which is the litigation documents, the complaint, the answer to the complaint, the response to the answer to the complaint, those sorts of things that are filed with the Superior Court. Superior Court documents are extremely difficult for the public to gain access to. The court system doesn't allow the public to directly access the documents. At appeals court, we can, but at Superior Court, we cannot. My suggestion to include the litigation documents is to make the job of your staff easier. You are a public agency. We can submit public records requests to you to get these litigation documents. Once we have them, they're public documents, we can put them up on a website. And your staff is going to be responding to one public records request after another to gain access to stuff that is all public document filed with the court, but just in an opaque repository. I'm just asking you to move those documents as you receive them into a transparent repository so that all of us from the BAAW, which has one opinion on the subject, to Climate Solutions, which has another, can all have access to them in a convenient and centralized place. It'll save your staff time, it'll save taxpayers money, and it'll save your constituents a lot of time. So I do urge you on the linked page with more information to post the litigation documents as they're filed with the court. That way your staff only has to do one thing, stick the documents up there, and not another thing, which is respond to a series of public records requests. It'll save you time and save us all money. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. Patrick, please. Thanks.
Sorry, Patrick. Go ahead, unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair. This is Patrick Hanks with the Building Industry Association of Washington again. I just want to note for the public that the only legally enforceable action the council can take regarding enforcement is to adopt changes to the code through rulemaking. Local jurisdictions have sole authority over enforcement. They also have their own compliance obligations related to the implementation of I-2066 beyond the Energy Code. The question is not whether to enforce the code, but how to enforce the code where it conflicts with the law. If the council wants to have a say in how jurisdictions navigate this issue, then they should move quickly to change the code so it no longer penalizes and discourages natural gas. Even if the council enters into formal rulemaking for the 2021 codes, that is not a guarantee that you will adopt substantive changes to the code. Until you do, enforcement is up to local jurisdictions. I try not to talk about litigation or potential litigation during these meetings, but my concern with you referencing litigation on this statement or on a potential webpage is people often can confuse with active litigation as being a reason to not comply with the law. And that is not the case until a court makes a final determination or grants a stay. The law is the law and it applies to the council. And I think sometimes talking about all that litigation can confuse people instead of make it clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. We'll go back to council. Damon, please.
Patrick kind of brings up a good point. It was something I was thinking as well. In that first sentence, I don't think we're questioning whether or not the code should be enforced, but how it should be enforced. And I wonder if changing the word whether to how would be more accurate. I'd look for council input on that.
Okay, thank you, Damon. Let's come back to that then. Jay, do you have a?
I have a separate issue, so if we had feedback on Damon's suggestion, we could start with.
Okay, let's do that. Angela?
I agree. That is a good change.
Okay. Tom?
Same here. Yeah, it shows we're actually doing something, not contemplating it.
You want a form of a motion or just take consensus?
I guess we're in a motion, so we'd have to, just.
Oh, we have a motion on the table.
Yeah, so it would be a friendly amendment.
Then I would
We
offer
don't have
that.
a second on that motion. at the moment.
Jay, give a
Oh,
second.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. Yeah.
Okay, then I would offer it up as an amendment unless the maker and second accept it.
Yeah, I'd consider that to be friendly.
Yeah, I'd accept it.
Thank you. And that's the only sentence that talks about enforcement, right? It's not saying that it's in the purview of the council. It's just addressing that. That's why there's a need for a statement to conclude with that final sentence there, that in the opinion of the council that the current 2021 codes are implemented. Okay. Jay, go ahead.
Great. Just wanted to respond to some of the public comment on the litigation part of the documents. I would love it if there was a single point of contact on this litigation, but I don't think it's the responsibility of the SBCC to maintain such a single webpage that's got all the litigation documents. I appreciate the challenges that Jim had brought up, but I think the links and information we're putting on our webpage is something should be things that SBCC controls. And I wouldn't want to take on a responsibility of updating a webpage when things were happening from a court standpoint and setting up that kind of expectation. Thanks.
Todd, do you mind if I can jump in just for a second here?
Of course.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I have apparently a free card to be able to jump in whenever I want. And I wanted to respond to something that Mr. Lazar said and then follow up on Jay. And this is mostly directed to members of the public and to the council. SBCC doesn't get copies of old documents. They're represented by counsel. So old documents that are filed in litigation actually come to the Attorney General's office or the lawyers. And some is shared with council staff. Not everything is, and I won't get into details of that because it's an attorney-client relationship. But suffice to say, there are a lot of routine filings in these in lawsuits that SBCC wouldn't have. So I just note that there's some practical issues with seeing this agency, the SBCC, as sort of a clearinghouse of litigation material. And would urge any member of the public who wants to follow the lawsuits to go to the websites of the courts who do post all of the information, or the filings rather, for a fee. People can sign up and access those.
Okay, thank you, Derek. Okay, we're coming up on time here, but we can keep going on the council comment here. Go ahead, Angela.
So I just quickly, before the last sentence, I would still like to see us add something coming from the other submitted alternate. It says this work has been assigned to the Energy Code Technical Advisory Group, TAGS, and the public is invited to participate in deliberations. I mean, I'd like to see something in there that references that this is going to the tags. And again, we haven't put an announcement that window has opened. So this could be a good place to at least get one up there immediately. Because along with this, I do think we need to set a timeline for when this has to be on the website, and it needs to be like now. Thanks.
Thank you, Angela. Katie?
Yeah, really quick, just to respond to Jay and Derek's suggestion. I think we can put a link to the Washington Court's website where people could go and just sign up for the case and those updates. So just a suggestion.
Okay. Thank you, Katie. Angela, do you feel that your concerns could be addressed in links on this page rather than in the statement, or do you really want it in the statement?
Well, like I said, the window being opened on the 10th, which was 11 days ago, hasn't been announced on the website yet. So I'm not sure where we would reference that. And I think that, I mean, yeah, we're giving the link to the motion, but I think that we could be much clearer by just saying this work has been referred back to the tags for review.
Angela, I guess my question was, is the specifics of how we're doing it, can those be on this page? Can we direct the staff to link those and add that information? But maybe
if they're going to do it in a timely manner, because again, we need that window to be announced, because like Patrick has said, that hasn't even been posted. And Dustin said, you know, yeah, they've been short-staffed and things, but opening a window, you know, 11 days ago and not posting that it's open seems to be a disservice to what we're trying to accomplish is kind of, so I'm just trying to get the information in because this has been kind of a delayed statement.
Okay.
That's all. Yeah.
Okay. Well, does the council feel it's sufficient that we've had this conversation in public forum, that we're directing the staff to include those items? Okay. I'm not hearing any feedback. Go ahead, Tom. We're coming up. We're gonna have to extend for a few minutes here if we're gonna keep talking.
Oh, I was just going to say real quick, perhaps we can put a header over this whole thing saying I-266 compliance or something that's just real clear and direct that lets people know what this is all about before they have to read through the whole paragraph to see what it is.
Okay. Okay, Chell?
Yep, I was trying to write something to what Angela was saying, and anything I wrote was not going to be timely because we don't have to want to vote every time we update part of the process. So
my point too. Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like we could vote on this and empower staff to, put up news items and expedite the announcement of the energy code proposal. So, yeah.
Okay.
If we're not going to vote on this, I'll make a motion to extend, but if we're about to vote on it, then.
I was just gonna ask, are we ready to vote or do we want to extend for 5 or 10 minutes? Let's vote. Okay, I'm gonna call the vote then. So it's been moved and seconded as to adopt this statement as amended on the screen. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, by that vote, then we will adopt the statement. In all other direction to the staff, thank you. Real quick, is there any other business? And if there is, we'd have to extend. If not, we will wait till next session. On that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for the input today.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all.